Recording in progress.
Welcome, everyone. Today is Thursday, October 28th. This is a regularly scheduled meeting of, excuse me? Oh yeah, it's not Thursday, it's Tuesday. I wish, I'm jumping ahead. It's Friday. It's Tuesday, October 28th, regularly scheduled meeting of the Land Use Committee. I'm Andrea Kelly, I'm the chair. Here in the chamber, we have Tariq Lucas, who's also the vice chair. He's from Ward 2. Allison Leary from Ward 1. Randy Block from Ward 4. Alan Lobovitz from Ward 6. See, I'm not going in ward order. I'm going around the circle. President Mark Laredo from Ward 7 and Councillor Stephen Farrell from Ward 8. Let's see who else we have on the remote. Andrea Downs, who's a member of the committee. She's on Zoom. We have several very important staff members with us in the chamber. We have Cassidy Flynn, who's acting as our clerk tonight. We have also, I see Katie Wewell on Zoom. In the chamber again, Jen Kyra. Oh, we also have with us tonight our new head clerk, Drew Willison, sitting in between Cassidy and Jen, his first time, I think, that I'm aware of in this chamber with at least the Land Use Committee. I saw Jonah Temple, who's with the Law Department. And I think we have Sandria Berman also from Planning. Let's see, and Councillor Rick Lipoff is just joining us now. He's not on the committee, but he's a former chair and he's from Ward 8. And as other councillors and people join us, I will try and welcome and acknowledge them all. Tonight, we have 3 items to get to. I would call them smaller items before we have a big item. So I'm going to try and remind everyone, both councillors and members of the public, that in order to try and get through this efficiently, to be concise in what you say, try and limit yourself to just a couple minutes. 3, we'll have a timer up on the screen. Don't repeat what was already said before, and then we'll be able to move on and hopefully get through a very big agenda tonight. So our first item is docket item number 309-25, which is a request to allow an extension of a non-conforming multifamily dwelling at 64-66 Dalby Street. And first we'll hear from the Planning Department.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Just bear with me as I pull up the presentation. Alrighty. Okay, hopefully everyone can see my screen.
Perfect.
Excellent. All right. So again, Sandria Berman, Senior Planner for the City of Newton, and I'm going to be presenting the planning presentation for petition 309-25, which is 6466 Dalby Street. And it's a request for special permit site plan approval to construct a rear addition to the second and half stories of an existing 3-unit multifamily residence that further increases the non-conforming multifamily use and non-conforming height. As you'll see here from the aerial map, the subject property is located in a multi-residence 2 district in Nonantum, and it's improved with an existing non-conforming 3-unit multifamily dwelling that was constructed circa 1895. Abutting properties within the MR2 district along Dalby Street consist primarily of single and 2-family residential uses on similar lot sizes with similar existing nonconformities related to front setbacks. The surrounding neighborhood zoning is mixed with MR1 and manufacturing districts to the west and business districts to the north and south of Dalby Street. There's also a public use district further east. In terms of zoning relief, the petitioner is seeking relief for the proposed addition to the second and half stories at the rear of the existing multifamily dwelling, and that results in an extension of the non-conforming multifamily use, as well as an increase in the non-conforming height. Some criteria to consider. that the site is an appropriate location for the proposed additions that will extend the nonconforming height, that those additions that will extend the nonconforming height will not adversely affect the neighborhood, that the proposed additions will not create a nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians, that access to the sites over streets is appropriate for the types and numbers of vehicles involved, and finally, that the proposed extension of the nonconforming use, multifamily use, is not substantially more detrimental than the existing nonconforming multifamily uses to the neighborhood. Some items from planning's analysis. Planning notes that the proposed relief for the extension of the multifamily use will enable the building to continue its existing use as a multifamily dwelling of 3 units. The proposed rear addition on the 2nd story and half-story attic space will not be readily visible from the street and will remain within the existing building footprint. The petitioner is seeking relief to further extend the nonconforming height to 37.11 feet from the existing 37.08, where 36 feet is the maximum allowed. And this is due to the proposed average grade being slightly lower than the original or the existing. But the peak of the addition will not exceed that of the existing building. The rear yard setback will also be reduced slightly to 60.3 feet from 62.8 feet, but 15 feet is the minimum required, and this does not require relief. Front and side setbacks will remain the same. And there's no change to the existing gravel driveway or perimeter fencing as proposed. There is an existing retaining wall along the left side lot line, but that will remain in place and does not require relief. And that concludes the presentation from planning. I'm going to stop my screen, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Berman. Is there someone here from the petitioner who would like to speak to this 64 to 66 Dalby Street proposal? Either owner, or is that Adelea? Are you speaking on behalf of the owner? Okay, go ahead. Just let us know who you are.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Adelia Usmanova. We are the homeowners of 6466 Dalby Street, and I can share my screen if needed and show the plans that are on file with this special permit application. So this is the existing addition in the rear. And here is the proposed addition in the rear. That's basically the only change we are doing to the exterior part of the building. And regarding the zoning relief, yeah, it's the rear setback here changing, and proposed height that's changing because of the average grade calculation, but the existing roof peak will remain the same. And the addition roof peak is lower than the main building mass. Do you have any questions?
We are going to take questions now, questions or comments from the committee. So stick around and they may have some to address to you. Thank you very much. Let's take this into committee. Councillor Leary. Oh yeah, sorry, public. Are there any members of the public who would like to speak either in the chamber or on Zoom? I don't see any, but if you're there, feel free to raise your hand and I'll try and come back to you. Now we'll take it into the committee. Councillor Leary, you had your hand up first.
Yes, thank you. This is in my ward, and I have absolutely no problem with this project. I think it's wonderful that they're keeping the house, that it's going to be remaining a 3-family, that they're improving it. And the relief they're asking for is very de minimis in my mind. And when the time comes, I'm ready to close the public hearing and make a motion to approve.
Thank you very much, Councillor Leary. Any other comments or questions from Land Use Committee members? No? Yes, Councillor Lobovitz? No.
Just want to echo Councillor Leary's remarks. A few of the councillors were there today, and I think it would be a tremendous improvement. Very happy to preserve an old home and preserve the basic what do you call that? The foundation of the house is not expanding. It's a beautiful backyard and very appropriate for the neighborhood. So I'm ready to vote in favor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lobovitz. Footprint stays the same, which is what I know you were getting at. Yes, thank you. Without any other questions or comments, we will entertain the motion by Councillor Leary to first close the public hearing. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Hearing none, we'll move on to the motion. We'll consider her motion to accept this proposal. Let's take a peek at the findings and conditions.
Okay, Madam Chair, I'll go ahead and share my screen. Just a moment. Okay, hopefully everyone can see my screen.
Yes.
We have here the draft council order. Again, a special permit site plan approval to extend the existing non-conforming multifamily dwelling use and to further increase the non-conforming height. And here we have the findings. Itemized number 1, the site is an appropriate location for the additions that will extend the non-conforming multifamily use because this is a pre-existing and long-standing residential use that is in conformance with other non-conforming residential uses in the MR2 district. The proposed additions that will extend the non-conforming height will not adversely affect the neighborhood because the additions will be at the rear and will be minimally visible from the street. The proposed additions that will extend the non-conforming height will not create a nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians because no changes are proposed that will adversely impact the driveway, parking, or circulation on site. Access to the site over streets is appropriate for the numbers of vehicles involved. And finally, that the proposed extension of the non-conforming multifamily use is not substantially more detrimental than the existing non-conforming multifamily uses to the neighborhood because the area features residences with varying sizes and scales, and the proposed project is not incompatible with the massing and size of nearby homes. We scroll further down, we have the petition number, the petitioner, and the petitioner's information. We have the special permit relief outlined here to extend the non-conforming multifamily and to increase the existing non-conforming height. And finally, we have our standard conditions. We have our standard plan referencing condition here with the architectural plans. We have our standard building permit condition under item 2. And then finally, our standard final inspection and certificate of occupancy condition under item 3. I'll go ahead and stop sharing my screen and happy to make any edits.
Thank you very much, Ms. Berman. I don't see anyone with their hand up to make any edits. I think we can go ahead and vote on this.
Counselor Block,
Aye.
Counselor Downs,
Aye.
Counselor Farrell,
Aye.
Counselor Kelly,
Aye.
Counselor Leary,
Aye.
Counselor Lobovitz,
Aye.
Counselor Lucas,
Aye.
President Laredo.
Aye.
The motion passes 8-0.
Thank you, everyone. I now see a hand up on the screen by Phyllis. Phyllis, were you raising your hand to speak on that petition for which we have already closed the public hearing and voted? Phyllis?
Yes, I was.
I'm sorry you missed that opportunity, but if you want to submit something to us in writing about it, feel free to go ahead, but we did approve it.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, I didn't catch you in time. I think your hand went up after we closed the public hearing. Thank you for being here, though. Next item is number 310-25, which is a request to allow a retaining wall exceeding 4 feet in height at 121 Hartman Road. And again, we'll hear from planning first. Again, that's Ms. Berman.
Yes, I'll go ahead and share my screen. All right. Okay, hopefully everyone can see my screen. All right, so again, as Chair Kelly mentioned, this is the petition 310-25 for a special permit site plan approval to allow the construction of a series of retaining walls over 4 feet in height at 121 Hartman Road. As you'll see here from the aerial map, the subject property is a conforming 10,424 square lot in a single residence 2 district in the Oak Hill neighborhood, and it's improved with a single family residence that was constructed in 1951. Abutting properties within the SR2 zone consist primarily of single-family residences on similarly sized lots, and the surrounding neighborhood is largely an SR2 zone with a multi-residence 3 zone further south and a public use zone further north. In terms of zoning relief, the petitioner is seeking permitting after the fact for the reconstruction and reconfiguration of a series of retaining walls over 4 feet in height. And in terms of criteria to consider, the standard for special permit criteria apply that the site is an appropriate location for the series of proposed retaining walls over 4 feet in height, that the retaining walls over 4 feet in height will not adversely affect the neighborhood, that the retaining walls will not be a nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians, that access to the site over streets is appropriate for the types and numbers of vehicles involved, and finally, specifically for the retaining walls, that the lot presents challenging topography, which limits the use of the property such that it could not be improved without the implementation of a series of retaining walls over 4 feet in height, that the proposed series of retaining walls over 4 feet in height will not adversely impact adjacent property, the neighborhood, or the public, and finally, that the retaining walls over 4 feet in height are the minimum structures necessary to allow a subject property to be reasonably utilized. Some items to consider from planning. Planning notes that the proposed series of 8 retaining walls provide structural stability, greater structural stability, and greater use of the yard, which is constrained by the significant upward slope towards the rear property line. That additional retaining walls that are proposed along the sides and front of the dwelling do not require relief as they're under 4 feet in height. To note that a previous special permit was issued in 2008 for relief for regrading work that resulted in a grade change in excess of 3 feet in the rear yard, and also include the installation of a retaining wall in the rear yard that was over 4 feet in height, but did not require special permit relief at the time. In addition to the proposed retaining walls, the petitioner is also proposing to install a rear yard stairway along the left side of the property that provides access to a deck and patio area. Abutting properties on either side of 121 Hartman Road include retaining walls that address the steep topography at the rear of those lots. And finally, that the proposed series of retaining walls requiring relief will not be visible from Hartman Road. That concludes the planning presentation. I'll go ahead and stop sharing my screen and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Berman. Is there somebody here in the chamber or online to represent the owner of this property in this petition? Could you come to the microphone, please, ma'am? There's a turn-on switch at the base of the microphone, and if you could just give us your name and address and relationship to the project, that would be great. No, not yet. Someone is coming.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Perfect. My name is Song Hee Cho. I'm the owner of 121 Hartman Road. Actually, I want to have a minor adjustment to the existing work that was approved in 2008. It was a single wall with 10 blocks. So I just want to move upper 3 blocks a little bit backward, which allows me to have a better view and a more safe and also usability, better usability.
I'm not sure I could quite catch everything you said. Were you saying that you're just asking for an extension of the 2008 permit that was already granted?
Yeah, so let me maybe share the one I want to just. So this is my backyard, the retaining wall. So initially it was the one single wall with the 10 blocks. Then I just want to adjust the upper 3 blocks a little bit backward. Then I have a more space and have more the aesthetically better view. That's what I want to do.
So you're asking to replace that one wall you were approved with a series of 7 more retaining walls. That's what I'm asking. I see the gentleman shaking his head, but I'm going to ask her because she's at the microphone. Unless if he with you, he can join you at the microphone.
Yeah, you can join me. He is my construction supervisor.
Had us. There was an existing wall of 7 blocks high, which was quite tall. And we just staggered it back 2 feet, 3 courses. So it's not such a fall. What created the problem, the old wall had a bit of a lean tipping forward because of the winter frost. We asked a man to repair the wall. While doing so, they just took the liberty to move it back 2 feet for a little planter and not so steep and tall. It was just a minor repair, and it was thought of as a new wall. It's not. It's the original wall, the original drainage. Nothing on the lower 2/3 were moved. The upper third, while repairing it, they staggered it back 2 feet for safety and planting. There was no bad intent. She didn't realize it was gonna be such a fuss.
Let me just stop you for a sec. Thank you. Oh, wait, you can stay at the microphone, sir. Could you identify yourself and just give us your name and who you're connected with so we know who you are?
I'm Lawrence Ritchie. I'm a licensed construction supervisor. To making the repair trouble for not permitting it. She brought me in for some advice.
Okay, thank you. So to my initial question, there was a wall there. You thought you were repairing it. And it wasn't just a repair because you actually moved the location of the wall, which is not in compliance with the plan that was approved in 2008. As you say, you conveniently moved it back 2 feet, so that is quite different from our perspective. We just want to understand that we get what's going on. And then beyond that wall and the moving of the wall, you've added a series of 7 other walls to eight walls altogether. Okay, that's what I thought. It's not quite as simple as you thought.
Thank you very much for clarifying.
We need to understand that. Anything else you'd like to add? Is there anything else you would like to add? You, ma'am?
No, that's it. Yeah,
Okay.
thank you for clarifying.
Okay, thank you. Now's the time when we go to the public hearing part, and I ask if there's any member of the public, either in the chamber or on Zoom, who would like to comment or question on this petition. Again, I don't see anyone right now, so we'll take this into the committee for some comments and questions. And I see Councillor Farrell, who is in your ward, had his hand up first. Councillor Farrell.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening. My first question, are you the owner of the building as it in 2000? Were you the same owner in 2009 that proposed this?
No, the owner from last year,
From 2024 or this year?
2024, around June.
Okay. And do you have the construction supervisor? Is he actually the person he's overseeing this
Mhm.
project? When did you tear down the house?
You mean
I'm
when?
sorry, I don't see a house on that property.
No, I
Does
don't
your
understand
house
the-
still exist on that property?
Yes. So I just moved in June 2004 into this property.
Well, then I apologize to you because I was over there today and I'm pretty certain I was looking at 121 Hartman.
Yes.
And that
121.
as far as I can tell, it's a hole in the ground. Do you know of that building or that property? Is it contiguous to yours? Yes, 121 Hartman.
The house has never been modified.
This is the same off of Greenwood Street, correct?
The house was built prior to the special permit in 2008. In 2008, a wall was built.
Then I apologize to you if I was looking at the wrong building, but I thought I was at 121 Hartman for sure. Anyhow, Chair, I apologize for that.
That's okay. I wonder if, so that we can understand this better, Ms. Berman, do you happen to have a photo of the house in your presentation there that you could put up so that both the owner of the house and Councillor Farrell could see if they're looking at the same thing?
I'd be glad to pull up the planning presentation. I have a front photo that I can show. I also have an aerial image. I don't know if perhaps the front facing facade would be the most helpful to see
Yes,
if you pass
thanks.
that. Okay, sure. Hold on just a moment.
And you can let us know if this is your house, and you can let us know if this was anything close to what you were seeing when you went to visit the site today, Counselor Farrell.
Okay, I'll try to enlarge this a little bit more.
That,
Can you see that photo right there?
that's your home.
Yeah.
It's my home.
And that was not what you were looking at today, Counselor Farrell, correct?
I'm looking at a Google Maps right now, and I don't see, I see 121.
Happy to look at the
I,
aerial here. There are two houses on either side. I'm not sure if there's another lot that, are you perhaps talking about this lot right here that might have a,
2 lots over looks like a hole in the ground.
yeah.
Aha. That might be it.
Sure.
May have just been off 2 houses, Counselor Farrell.
No worries.
Chair, I apologize for this. I'm not recognizing this house.
Okay.
And I spoke with the owner of the property at 124 this afternoon. And well,
Across the
I was
street.
looking across the street from a vacant lot.
Across
Now-
the street. 124 would be across the street.
I'm sorry?
124 would be across the street?
Yes,
Okay. I think we
I
can
will, I
move on.
apologize.
I know.
And believe me, I will be back there first thing in the morning to see where I was.
Any other questions or comments from committee members on this project, which is a little bit of a forgiveness after the fact request? Anything? And if not, we'll come back to you, Counselor Farrell, if you would like to make a motion on this. And if you don't want to, because you weren't looking at the correct property, we can see if someone else would like to make a motion.
I'm a little bit embarrassed about this, Counselor, and Chair, and until I verify what's there, unless someone else has perspective.
Counselor Lucas? Counselor Farrell, you can of course abstain if you want to. Go ahead, Counselor Lucas.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm allergic to something in here. I don't know. Yeah, I think this is all set. As it said in the planning memo, there are other homes that, the 2 homes that directly abut 121 Hartman have retaining walls in the rear. There's a very steep grade change, so a retaining wall, in my opinion, is necessary. So I am fine with this, and I will move to close the public hearing and move for approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Lucas. All in favor of closing the public hearing, please say aye.
Aye.
That sounded unanimous. And you also made a motion to approve. Ms. Berman, findings and conditions, please.
Absolutely. Bear with me as I just go ahead and share the screen. Okay, hopefully everyone can see. We have here the special permit site plan approval to allow construction of a series of retaining walls over 4 feet in height, located within 25 feet of one another. And the findings here, they have that the site is an appropriate location for the proposed series of retaining walls over 4 feet in height, as they provide the structural stability for the proposed addition of a patio and staircase in the rear yard. The proposed series of retaining walls over 4 feet in height will not adversely affect the neighborhood because a majority of the retaining walls will not be visible from the street. The proposed series of retaining walls over 4 feet in height will not be a nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians because they're located at the rear of the property and do not affect the parking or pedestrian traffic, and that access over streets is appropriate for the types and numbers of vehicles involved. And finally, the findings for the retaining wall, that the lot presents challenging topography, which limits the use of the property such that it could not be improved without the implementation of the retaining wall over 4 feet in height to maintain a level portion of the rear lot with the significant downward slope from the rear lot line. The proposed retaining walls over 4 feet in height will not adversely impact the adjacent property, the neighborhood, or the public, as they are located at the rear of the property and are not easily visible from the street. And finally, that the retaining walls over 4 feet in height are the minimal structure necessary to allow the subject property to be reasonably utilized. Continuing down here, we have the applicant's information, the location, the use for single-family dwelling, and the special permit relief to allow for a series of retaining walls over 4 feet in height. And again, we have our standard building permit conditions. We have the standard plan conditions, standard building permit conditions here again. And then finally, the standard certificate of occupancy conditions here for closeout. If you have any questions, I'm happy to pull this back up, but I'll go ahead and stop sharing my screen for now.
Thank you very much. I don't see any more questions or comments, so we can go ahead to take a vote.
Counselor Block,
Aye.
Counselor Downs,
Aye.
Counselor Farrell,
Abstain.
Counselor Kelly,
Aye.
Counselor Leary,
Aye.
Counselor Lopovitz,
Aye.
Counselor Lucas,
Aye.
President Laredo.
Aye.
The motion passes 7-0, 1 abstention.
Thank you very much. And thank you for coming in order to get, and thank you and your contractor for coming to get permission to do what you're doing. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your support.
Good luck.
Thank you.
The next item we have tonight is number 311-25, which is a request to further increase non-conforming FAR at 156 Highland Street. Again, we'll hear from the planning department first.
Yes. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen for the third time. Okay. And hopefully everyone can see my screen. And as we have here, we have petition 311-25, which is a special permit site plan approval to relocate an existing building towards the center of the lot and construct a connection to the primary dwelling, as well as construct a deck at the rear of the dwelling that requires relief to further increase the non-conforming FAR and the non-conforming rear setback. As you'll see here from the aerial map, the property is a largely level, conforming 21,392 square foot lot in a single residence 1 district in West Newton. The property is improved with a single family residence and detached accessory barn / carriage house that was constructed circa 1880. The abutting properties within the single residence 1 zone consist primarily of historic single-family residences on similarly sized lots, and the surrounding neighborhood zoning is largely a single residence 1 zone with a single residence 2 district further north. Again, the petitioner is seeking relief to relocate that accessory building to a more central location in the lot and construct an enclosed walkway that connects it to the primary dwelling, as well, which requires relief to further increase the non-conforming FAR. And in addition to that, they're making improvements to the rear of the dwelling with a 725 square foot deck that requires relief to further extend the non-conforming rear setback. So when considering this request, the council, let's go back to that, sorry. You should consider whether the proposed increase in the non-conforming FAR from 0.40 to 0.43, where 0.29 is the maximum allowed as of right, is consistent with and not in derogation of the size, scale, and design of other structures in the neighborhood. That the proposed extension of the non-conforming rear setback is not substantially more detrimental than the existing non-conforming rear setback is to the neighborhood. And finally, that the proposed increase in the non-conforming FAR is not substantially more detrimental than the existing non-conforming FAR is to the neighborhood. So planning notes that the proposed increase in the non-conforming FAR to 0.43 from 0.40, where 0.29 is the maximum allowed as of right, is in conformance with the scale and size of other abutting single-family homes in the neighborhood. Planning notes that the relocation of the existing accessory building, carriage house, from the northern corner of the lot resolves the existing nonconformity for the side and rear setbacks of that building. And in addition, the walkway connection between the primary dwelling and the accessory building also resolves the accessory building's non-conforming 2-story height, because 2.5 stories are allowed by right with primary structures. The proposed increase in the 113 square feet within that accessory building is due to the construction of a dormer on the second story, but the construction does not exceed the existing building footprint. The proposed 650 square foot enclosed walkway that connects the accessory building to the primary dwelling will not be obtrusive in height and be partially concealed by the accessory building from the Highland Street view. And finally, the proposed rear deck's extension of the existing non-conforming rear setback to 13.1 feet from the existing 14.5 feet, where 25 feet is the minimum required, is not significantly more detrimental than the existing non-conforming rear setback of the primary dwelling structure. That concludes planning's presentation, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Berman. Counselor Lucas, stop banging. No, I think that's our heat going on. Is there someone here from the petitioner for 156 Highland Street who would like to present a proposal? Dennis Greenwood, is that you on Zoom?
Yes. Thank you, members of the chair. Dennis Greenwood from Souza Design Architects. And thank you for the great presentation, Ms. Berman. I'll be very brief because you covered most of the bases, but I'll just run the board through quickly what we propose. So here we have the existing site plan. You can see the footprint of the existing 2.5 story residential dwelling. In the upper corner here, in that northern corner of the site, you can see the existing 2-story wood framed carriage house, that 3-car garage that exists now. It's 4 feet off of the side property line, and it's 3.1 feet off of that rear property line. The proposal is to relocate that carriage house from that northern corner, kind of along that side property line. So we're going to increase it from 4 feet off that side property line to 17.7 feet off of that side property line. And we maintain over 36 feet from the front property line to the new location at the side of that carriage house as well. You can see at the rear of the building, there is a proposed deck, and there is an enclosed garage walkway rather that connects the main structure over to that relocated carriage house. And here's a certified plot plan showing that as well. So again, the deck at the rear, as mentioned, is 13.1 feet off of that rear property line. And again, the proposed 3-car garage is 17.7 feet off the side and 36.1 feet off of the front property line along Highland Street. And then I have the whole zoning summary, which we can kind of go in if anyone has any questions, but otherwise we'll kind of breeze through that. Again, most of this is focused on the garage. So we have the garage plan, second floor garage plan. We're maintaining it. We are modifying some of the openings and putting a dormer along the front of that carriage house, reframing the stairs up to that second floor, and adding a cupola, which you'll see in the upcoming rendering as well. Again, plans of the covered garage walkway, some details, elevation. So again, the existing footprint remains the same. We do have a dormer along the front. We're reworking the garage door entries and adding that cupola piece at the top as a nice decorative element, which you can see in the street rendering here. So again, on the left, you can see the relocation of that carriage house. You can see that dormer along the front and that cupola. You can see the reworking of the garage doors. Again, we're over 36 feet back from the main property line, and we're looking to decrease the existing nonconformities in the location of that carriage house. And then that FAR bump was in the covered garage walkway that connects the main building to that carriage house. So with that, I would open it up if anyone has any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm about to ask if there are any members of the public who'd like to speak, but from this rendering, it looks like it's a different material than the previous house, or is that just how it's rendered? Is this still going to be a shingles house?
Yeah, it's stucco with stone on the
Looks like
first
stucco.
floor and then stucco.
So that is different. Okay, just wanted to be clear. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
There may be more questions from you. Are there any members of the public who would like to speak or ask questions? I know we did get a letter or two about this. Councillor Downs, before I call on you, I'm just going to see if there are any hands from the public. Also, I'd like to welcome Councillor Pam Wright, who has joined remotely the hybrid meeting via Zoom, just in time because this is in her ward, Ward 3. She's a Ward 3 councillor like me. I don't see anyone from the public, so Councillor Downs, why don't I go to you first?
Thank you, Chair. I think my only question is about the stormwater memo in the packet. There was a note that there was some excavation without siltation fencing. Have you fixed that? Has that been fixed?
I believe Evan's on the line from the ownership team. He may be able to answer that question.
Yeah.
Holbritter.
What's the first name of Mr. Evans?
Evan. His last name is Holbritter.
Oh. Clerk is looking through to find him and to be able to make him a co-host so he can speak or share.
Hey there, good evening.
Hi.
Hey, to answer your question, Andrea, we no longer have excavation activities going on at the site. But the next time that we do, especially when we excavate the new foundation for the relocated barn, we'll be sure to set up erosion control the way that Newton DPW approves it. With all this, we still don't have like an approved site plan, but I assure you that we'll follow it the next time that we go to excavate anything.
Excellent. That's really all I really wanted to hear on this. I have otherwise no real concerns about this. It seems like a reasonable adaptation of a large site in a neighborhood full of large sites and large buildings.
Mr. Holbritter, while we have you here, could you just let us know what your role is? I'm sorry if I missed that when the architect introduced you. What's your job?
I work with Kenwood Builders. We're on the development team, and
okay.
yeah, we're currently renovating the existing home.
Builder development team. All right, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Downs. Councillor Lucas.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Greenwood, thank you for the presentation. I thought it was a good one. Just a couple questions. I just want to make sure I'm following everything here. You're moving the garage carriage house on the lot to where its current position is now, but what does it look like now? The garage carriage house.
So it's the same kind of massing. It is shingle right now. We are proposing that we're going to change it to stucco, and we are relocating some of the openings. So you can see up above is the existing, and then down below would be the proposed. So for example, on the side elevation, you can see the shape of that cross gable, the gambrel roof there. There's two windows over one window on the first floor. We're proposing a double window mulled unit on the first floor, and then a mulled single unit up above on that side elevation. Similarly, on the entry side, we're reworking the openings for two-car and single-car garage entry on that, the length there. We are maintaining that dormer. So again, the volume and the mass of it is staying the same, but we are reworking some of the openings, adding that cupola, and changing from shingle to stucco.
Can you go back up a slide, please?
Sure.
So the ones at the top are the current renderings?
Correct.
And at the bottom, okay, so forgive me, are you adding a dormer to this?
No, there's an existing dormer. We're redoing the dormer, but that does exist. We're adding a cupola.
Oh, you're adding that?
Yes.
Okay. And then there was another bird's eye view. It was one of the earlier slides.
Site plan?
Yeah, there you go. That connector.
Yes.
Yes, that. Is that where the increase in the FAR is going to be?
Yes, that's the majority of it. There's a little bit of increase just on the way that the second floor of the garage is calculated, but otherwise it's all within that enclosed garage walkway. That's 650 square feet is within the garage walkway.
And that's only a story high?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it seems fine. I just had a few questions, but this is good to go. Good luck with your project. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lucas. Councillor Leary.
I was just noticing that you had already said it, it looks like a completely different house. I was wondering if they had done work on the house prior that was by right? Because the whole front of it's changed. There's a new dormer in there and it doesn't look the same at all.
Yeah, we were working with the Historic Commission and got that all approved. So we stayed
Oh, okay.
we stayed under the threshold of the allowed demolition and kind of worked through with the town all those improvements.
Okay, thank you. It's a lovely project.
Thank you.
Any other comments from committee members? I don't see anybody on Zoom. Councillor Lucas?
Thank you. Because it's Ward 3, I will move to close the public hearing and move for approval.
Thank you. All in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Is anyone opposed? Councillor Downs, I'm not sure I heard you.
Yeah, I was muted. Sorry. Aye.
Okay. Let's move on to entertain the motion to approve. First, we'll look at the findings and conditions.
Okay, I'll go ahead and pull that up, Madam Chair. Okay. Right, hopefully everyone can see my screen. We have here the special permit site plan approval draft order and the findings here under item 1, the proposed increase in the non-conforming FAR from 0.40 to 0.43, where 0.29 is the maximum allowed as of right, is consistent with and not in derogation of the size, scale, and design of other structures in the neighborhood, as abutting properties include similar massing, and the proposed increase in square footage integrates the 2 building structures on site. The proposed extension of the nonconforming rear setback is not substantially more detrimental than the existing nonconforming rear setback is to the neighborhood, given that the extension is located at the rear and in a location not visible from the street, and the extension is relatively minor in nature. And item 3, that the proposed increase in the nonconforming FAR is not substantially more detrimental than the existing nonconforming FAR, as the project and increase in square footage connects 2 existing structures, reducing other items of zoning noncompliance on the property. We have here the petition number, the petitioner's information, address, confirming that it will be used for residential use, and the exact special permit relief for the nonconforming increase in the FAR, the nonconforming rear setback. And here we have our standard plan referencing condition, including the site plan, architectural plans, as well as the landscaping plan here under item C. Under item 2, we have the standard operations and maintenance plan. Under item 3, we have the standard pest and rodent remediation condition. Item 4 is the standard building permit condition. Item 5 is the standard final inspection and certificate of occupancy condition. And then item 6 is again just reiterating that the petitioner will comply with the landscaping that's in condition 1. And that is it. I'm happy to keep this up if there's any questions or any additions that anyone would like to add.
Thank you, Ms. Berman. I have a feeling we're all set with that. I don't see any hands up. We're ready to vote.
Counselor Block,
Aye.
Counselor Downs,
Aye.
Counselor Farrell,
Aye.
Counselor Kelly,
Aye.
Counselor Leary,
Aye.
Counselor Lobovitz,
Aye.
Counselor Lucas,
Aye.
President Laredo. The motion passes 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. That was nicely efficient. I'm very happy that it's not already 10 o'clock. Before us now, we have what we are referring to as the Dudley Road project. It's item number 217-25, which is a request for a special permit and site plan approval to allow 71 single-family attached dwellings in 27 buildings total, with associated dimensional waivers and inclusionary zoning exceptions at 85 Dudley Road. And in this case, we'll hear from the petitioner first for an update from the last time we met, which was on September 9th. We were here. Go ahead, Mr. Lee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening. My name is Lawrence Lee with the law firm of Rosenberg, Freeman and Lee on behalf of the petitioner. With me tonight are the same members of the team, Mike McKay, Vern Porter, Giovanni Fodera. And on Zoom, I believe we have a member of VHB Associates who is helping us with traffic. So as you may remember from last time, we ended on a late night. And so this is a little bit unusual in terms of almost like a part B here. So the first time we had a chance to present, we gave you a lot of information. However, the Land Use Committee had not the chance to express any concerns, questions, comments in a public forum. We did receive from you questions to which we would like to answer at this moment. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, with your permission, share my screen, and then we'll start from there.
Thank you. We're looking forward to these responses. I want to thank the committee members, by the way, for almost everybody spending time to write thoughtful questions and comments to submit to you. So thank you all for doing that, because it was too late that night for us to have a substantive conversation falling asleep at our desk. So go ahead, Mr. Lee. Thanks for the responses we're about to hear.
Thank you very much. So just a very quick recap since September 9th. This is a quick timeline just to bring us to today. Right after the September 9th public hearing, we had a preliminary discussion with the Newton Housing Partnership with respect to the project as well as the IZ payment request previously made. I will get into that a little bit later tonight. As you may all know, we met at the site on September 17th. Many of you were there. Since then, we've met with Mark Welch, and then we had a planning board meeting, and here we are on October 28th, our second land use hearing. Just before here, we went before the Newton Housing Partnership the second time, and I will talk a little bit more a little bit later about the IZ ordinance compliance. Here's just some several slides to bring you back up to speed of what we're doing. This is a rendering of the proposed project. On the upper right corner is the Dudley Road entrance, and that leads to a private road of 26 buildings that are going to be brand new with an existing house at 85 Dudley Road to be preserved. There are 3 lots in question with about 15 acres of land. Currently is zoned SR1 and SR2. We're located just south of Route 9 and adjacent to South High School. Again, it's a quick recap of the proposed project with duplexes, triplexes, and quads, units ranging from about 3,500, actually that's a typographical, 3,500 to 4,500 square feet, private road with condominiums for sale. This is a zone map that shows the existing configuration. Here, I don't know if you can see my cursor here. We're on the northern part of the project is SR1 zone and SR2 to the westerly side. Below us is public, which is the Newton Public Schools property where Newton South is at. You've seen this before from last time. This is just a site with the layout of the proposed buildings and the private road. Here's an area plan that shows our proposed development with the SR2 smaller lots and denser developments to our east, west. And then on our easterly and northerly, we have an SR1, larger lots and larger homes. Here, we believe this is a fitting development simply because we think this is a good transition between the 2 zones. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to break it down into different categories and sort of how we go about it. Tonight, we'll start with traffic, then with our architect, then our site engineers will answer questions related to that topic. I will then come back and address the affordable housing component, and then later on we'll end up with the trees and landscaping. So with that, I'm going to start off with the traffic questions, and I'll turn it over to VHB, who is on Zoom. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So I'll go through the questions here. The first one was asking for a TDM or Transportation Demand Management Plan. Our response to that is that this is a residential only project in a heavy residential area. There aren't any sidewalks or bike lanes on Dudley Road, so TDM measures don't seem appropriate for this specific location. We did identify, however, that we will have a pedestrian connection available to Newton South High School, so that will potentially reduce some vehicle trips as people can walk there instead of driving. The next question asked about the queue at the Route 9 at Dudley Road intersection. The 95th percentile queues, meaning that 95% of the time it's that length or shorter. On the approach from Dudley Road to Route 9 are approximately 9 vehicles in the morning and 4 vehicles in the evening. The distance from the site driveway to Route 9 is approximately 575 feet or around 23 vehicles long, meaning that the Dudley Road approach queue is less than half the distance from Route 9 to the site driveway at its longest. The next question was asking for more clarification on speed bumps versus humps versus tables. So all of these devices work in the same way to slow down speed by causing discomfort to drivers and passengers if the vehicle drives over them too fast. Speed bumps are very abrupt, and so you'll typically see them in parking lots because they significantly slow down cars. Speed humps are a little bit longer and more gradual, so that makes them more appropriate for roadways. And then speed tables are pretty much like speed humps, except they have a flat area on top. So that allows for slightly higher speeds than speed humps. You'll typically see the speed tables as a raised crosswalk around here. So we are proposing speed humps on Dudley Road because they're more suitable for use on roads with higher traffic volumes, such as residential streets and collector roads, which fits the description of Dudley Road. The next question was on driver and pedestrian safety and how it differs from existing conditions. So the projected increase of traffic on Dudley Road as a result of the project is not expected to be significant. In addition, the proponent is proposing to install speed humps and speed feedback signage on Dudley Road as measures to improve safety and reduce speeds from existing conditions. There was another part of that question that was asking about a connection to Brandeis Road. So that connection, we feel, would increase traffic near Newton South High School, where, as we know, there's significant pedestrian activity, potentially create a cut-through path through the new development, and add traffic to other nearby intersections that aren't currently anticipated to be impacted, because most of that traffic will probably still try to make its way back to Route 9. So it makes the most sense to us to keep traffic away from the school and oriented to Route 9 by having that one access point on Dudley Road. The final question was asking about potential one-way circulation on the private internal roadway. So with the low traffic volumes, any potential benefits of one-way circulation are likely to be minimal. While it could simplify circulation, it would increase travel distance to or from some of the homes and would likely not result in reduced roadway width because we still need to accommodate fire trucks and other vehicles that on those curves. And then the current two-way circulation is currently providing more flexible access for residents and emergency vehicles and whoever else needs to access this development. So that is my brief overview of all of your questions.
Thank you, Ashley. One of the things that I want to remind the folks is that BSC Group has been hired as the peer reviewer on behalf of the city, in terms of reviewing VHB's assessments. By and large, I think BSC has concurred with a lot of the conclusions that VHB has reached. With our next, I'm going to turn it to Michael McKay, who is the architect.
Hello, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Michael McKay, I'm the project architect. The questions that were directed towards my end, what are the sizes of the units and do they include garages? The FAR for the units varies between 3560 square feet and it goes up to 4550. And that square footage is based on the existing average grade. So it's in the old days, old zoning, it would have been much less, but we presented both calculations for existing average grade and proposed average grade. So the average unit size is 3650. Much of that includes basement and it also includes garage. There's several different unit designs with approximately a quarter of the units having bedrooms on the ground floor. All of the units are designed with elevator shafts to allow for complete accessibility to all levels. Each of the units has a 2-car garage with EV car charging stations, and all of, as I mentioned, all square footage is included in the unit size. There's 5 different unit types that are interconnected in a mix of duplexes, triplexes, and quads. And so it gives a variation of building type. The garages are front-facing to reduce the amount of paving. There's more paving required if they're side-loaded garages. In some of the duplexes or quadplexes, there are garage doors, 4 units of garage doors, but it would have been more paving and less green space if they were side-loaded. The next question was address generic necklace proposed design. We've prepared our office and working with the civil engineer and landscape architect, we've prepared at least a dozen site plans, and several of those were presented at DRT meetings with fire department review. One of them was maybe a little more generic feeling, but it had a dead end, and it was sloping down towards where the walkway connecting to Newton South. So ultimately, this design is the one that we thought worked best because it pulled some of the units further away from the adjacent neighbors, and it was also the most efficient for the fire department and emergency vehicle access. The contours of the road and placement of the varied unit designs into the topography break up the road as well. And we've designed the road with a slight curve, so it's not just a straight street. What consideration was given for unique natural qualities and what site challenges in developing the site plan? As everybody's aware, the site is challenging. It's a sloping site from the existing top grade going all the way down to the neighboring properties. That's why we're proposed to lower it, get this platform where we can get at least as much of a level area to work with these units, but we still have a contour in the site that allows for the variation. Some of the garages are under, some of them are at grade, so it's not going to feel like a very uniform street. There will be variation in design, and we think it's the best use in all the options that we looked at. And I think that's it for my questions. Thank you.
So we'll move on to the site questions, and I'm going to ask Vern Porter.
Good evening, Vern Porter. I'm a land surveyor, civil engineer, office at 354 Elliott Street, Newton. So we're going to go through some of the site questions that we had from the September 9th meeting. There was a question about what is open space, and according to the open space calculations on the plans, Newton has a definition of open space, which it actually includes walks, patios, anything grass, anything planted is all considered open space, other than the driveway and the buildings and the roadway. So anything other than that is open space. The roads are 25 feet wide throughout the development, and it's 24 feet wide when it gets to Dudley Road. There is an existing walking path, which we've all walked on at some point. That path will be memorialized. We have designed sidewalks. So during construction, we're going to put it on our southerly boundary. And that boundary is a straight line all the way from Dudley Road to the high school. So we're going to take the 5 feet that's right along that property line and fence both sides of it so the kids know where to walk. And we'll make a temporary path there. And then once the site is developed, we have a path that'll go through. They'll walk down the sidewalk on one side, cross a crosswalk, and follow the sidewalk around part of the loop, and then cross another sidewalk, crosswalk, and go into where the utilities go through the buildings. There's a pathway, and then that pathway will take along a detention basin and along a pathway there, and then down into the high school in a very similar location to where they are now. We will have guest parking. There'll be guest parking in the driveways to the units, as well as one side of the roadway as it goes around. And even if we park on one side of the roadway, there's still plenty of room for the fire department and all their vehicles to get by, even with cars parked there. Construction and phasing. So I'm gonna touch on that later. I have a section for that. Want to do it now? Okay, so this is the basic utility layout. As you can see, there's different colors for the different utilities. So the utilities come from Dudley Road, the water, and everything else goes, the drainage and the sewer go out the back and go out to Brandeis Road, but the water and sewer come down and around there. And we are providing, the city engineer asked us to provide a loop. So we're going to connect the water line from Dudley Road to Brandeis Road with larger pipes that actually are in the roads there, but it's done for the future. So if they want to balance their system and help flow between the two water systems. So Dudley Road has a very long dead end line. So this will help the community with better water and whatnot. This is a subcatchment area. It tells us where the drainage is going, because one of the concerns that we heard from all the abutters, especially on Hagan Road, Adeline Road, and Brandeis Road, that they had some flooding. So our developer has asked us to say, okay, I would like you to design something that takes care of the water and try to reduce as much water going onto those abutters as possible. So this is a subcatchment area that shows the different colors and which way the water goes. So that yellow section, that pretty much goes to what says a DP1, the design point 1, which is, right there. So we've done the design point there, and that yellow section goes to that. That purple section goes to design point 2, which is there. And the green section goes to the next one, design point 3. And then the blue section goes to Brandeis Road, design point 4. So this is the subcatchment after we install our buildings and after we install our road. So as you can see, just graphically, most of the water is heading into our detention basins and towards Brandeis Road. And the 3 sections that go to the abutters, the yellow, the purple, and the green, you can see that they're much smaller than they were. So we did a comparison. And when you look at these comparisons, they actually, the amount of water that's going to those places is still less than what it was before. So if we look at the yellow section, the water gets reduced, let's see, 68% reduction in water going on to that Mr. Younger's property in that location right there. The purple section basically goes to Hagan Road into that wetland. We didn't want to not have any water go to the wetland, so we have water going to the wetland. But we still reduced it. The purple section got reduced by 57%. And same with the green section, it gets reduced by 62%. So what we've done is just by the development and having the loop road everywhere within the road and where the buildings are gets collected. Some of it gets infiltrated. Some of it gets put into our detention basins. Some of it goes into the drain line in Brandeis Road. But less goes to all the abutters that were concerned about water. This is a construction management phasing type plan, just so you can get an idea of how we'll attack the site. What they'll do, first thing they'll do is this kind of shows an area where there's the blue dotted line is basically a construction trail road access for the vehicles and the equipment that's going to drive around. The red lines are intermittent hay bale lines and siltation lines. So as they're working, we'll have multiple layers of hay bales. You can see there's 2 red lines. And then there's also another line out at the edge of the disturbance, which has another hay bale line. And then there'll be hay bales along the property line as well. So from where like the blasting is going to go and the big heavy earthwork is going to go, we have series of 4 hay bale lines. So, you know, the Conservation Commission was concerned about if we had a deluge, what would happen to all that water, sheet flowing down, all that ledge that we've taken the vegetation off. So this is the plan for that. And then staging. Yeah, but that's okay. Yeah. Yeah. So this is that's the staging area there, which we'll use to park equipment. And then we have a stockpiling area right above that. So as the site gets developed, what we'll do is come in, and first thing they'll do is put hay bales along the perimeter of the property. And then we're going to try to leave a buffer of vegetation about 50 feet all the way around the property during construction. So we're not going to clear everything all at once. We're going to leave this strip that's around the outside. We're going to leave the trees and the ground vegetation in that area and put a siltation barrier in front of it so that we'll have some natural defense or, you know, if we have any, if there is a heavy rain and silt does go down, if it gets past the 2, at that point, there'll be 2 hay bale lines before that, and then this one at the 50-foot, and then there's another one at the property line. So between all those and then the vegetation for the 50 feet, we feel that, you know, it'll keep siltation from getting into the wetlands and leaving the property, and so everything will be contained. All right, so we did the partial. We're going to establish the access road. As we start construction, we're going to establish the access road. So to do that in some, so sorry, I'm going to go back to number 3. We're going to do some partial tree removal. So after we have the hay bales in, we're going to clear the trees, you know, other than the stuff that's in the 50 feet. We're going to maintain that. And then we're going to build the access roads, our staging areas. And then from the staging areas, they'll work blasting away from the staging area, kind of west. So that's where all the blasting is going to be. Right on the end of that staging area, there's a very large outcrop of rock, goes up quite a distance. So what they'll do is from the staging area, they'll work their way in, haul stuff out that's leaving. They'll stockpile boulders that we'll use for the riprap walls and whatnot. So after the ledge removal, we'll get to the grading, building the riprap walls, building the permanent detention basins. And then after that, they'll continue on the site work, utilities, foundations. That's just a basic overview of how they'll do that. We do have some blasting regulations that we put up there just so everyone knows, you know, the rules that we'll be following. Newton Fire Department has their own additional rules. We file permits with them. We will offer, under the state rules, we will offer the neighbors, anyone within 250 feet of the property will be offered a pre-blast survey so that they'll make sure that, you know, they'll be able to document anything that's wrong with the house now and know that if there's any damage caused, they'll take care of it. And you guys have your own condition in the special permits we've seen before, so we expect to have that same condition added to the special permit. So overall, there are some site improvements after we're done. So we're going to do some improved stormwater management by reducing the runoff to the abutters. They'll be in a much better position. Hopefully they don't have the flooding that they've had in the past. We'll improve the water quality of the runoff because right now the runoff just kind of runs through the ledge and off into the other properties. The runoff that we'll have now will go through our detention basins and settling basins. So it'll be clean. We'll be recharging a lot of the water back into the ground, which is a good thing. And we'll have erosion and sediment controls permanently as they build the riprap walls and plant all that stuff. In the future, all that planting and all the vegetation around the perimeter of the property will keep it'll keep, the site from eroding in the future. So infrastructure utility improvements, we are, like I said earlier, we're connecting the water lines from Dudley Road to Brandeis Road with a 12-inch pipe. The existing lines, I think, are only 8-inch, but the city engineer has asked us to do a 12-inch through there, and in the future, they'll use it to balance the water systems and whatnot. It's a good thing for the city. We're going to have some environmental and site restoration. We're going to be planting a whole bunch of vegetation, trees, that will control the runoff. There'll be native species. They'll get rid of, I think there's a whole bunch of the Norway maples in there. So we're going to get rid of a lot of those, plant nicer trees, all native stuff, but it'll be good. Safety improvements. We have the trail right now that the kids use, and we all walked. If anyone walked that trail or walked the site, they saw the kids going through the trail. So we will make that safer for them, and they'll be able to walk down the sidewalks. And that'll be good. The roadway in our site will provide emergency vehicles throughout the site. Long-term maintenance monitoring, we do have as part of our drainage design, there's a operation and maintenance plan, which is, it's not a plan, it's actually a document, and it tells when to clean all the structures, how often to clean them, when should they be replaced. There's a whole system of things that they do. There's actually a report that they file and give to the city. And so reliance and climate adaptation. The site is designed to handle larger storm events consistent with the climate resistance and hydrology to reduce localized flooding and mitigation of downstream impacts. Thank you. If you have any questions later, we'll gladly answer.
Thank you, Mr. Porter.
Okay, so we're going to kind of switch things up a little bit on you. Councilor Leary, did you have a question?
Go ahead, Councilor Leary.
Yes, I do. Actually, I didn't see any of that material in our packet. And what I did read, I was concerned about, and there's a lot of missing information. And frankly, what that presentation basically was telling us what your opinion is of the project without any data or maps or information. And frankly, we'll make the decision what's best in terms of, with consulting with our engineers and our specialists. And I just felt like that was a lecture without really anything backing it up, because I need to have the material ahead of time so I can look at it. And I don't know where that was. And I looked pretty carefully, and what you just presented, I didn't see any of that.
Understood. This is, again, this is a little bit of an unusual component in that this is sort of a part B of the first September hearing.
I just wanted to ask, a lot of that, all we did in that presentation was just accumulate some of the information that's in there. All the documents the drainage information and that came right out of the drainage calculations. It was just a presentation, and all that, those subcatchment plans are in the drainage calculations. I calculated the percentages, but if you look in the drainage calculations, each one of those design points has a flow. So all I was doing is presenting the information that is in those documents. The pipes are in the utility plans, the 12-inch pipe, the walkway, for the kids, the path, that's in there. That construction phasing plan is in the documents that we submitted. So I kind of condensed it for presentation, but all of that information is in the packets.
I saw, our engineers were very concerned about components of the plan that I saw. I didn't see any data or details that you were how you did that calculation.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We will clarify that. We will work with BSC to clarify. I think the key here is to illustrate some of the rather technical terms that we encountered in the first public hearing. So there were a lot of data that was thrown at you in that very first meeting. Here, we're trying to visualize and present a more of a the visual aid to the engineering data. All of this will be submitted, and we will work with the planning department on that front to ensure that you have all the information so you can make the informed decision. So
We're not voting on this tonight.
oh,
obviously.
absolutely not. That's not what we were expecting. So I'm going to pivot a yes.
I
Chair.
have a couple of hands up.
Oh, absolutely.
I don't know if this is still for Mr. Porter. Before I go to Councillor Lobovitz, who has his hand up, I want to mention that we've been joined on Zoom by Councillor Maliki and Councillor Albright. Welcome. Thanks for coming. Councillor Lobovitz, did you have a question specifically for Vern Porter? Okay, go ahead,
Yeah.
please.
So I'm not that familiar with wetlands, but are you saying that there's going to be significant decrease in flow of water to the wetland area?
That's correct.
Yeah. How does that affect wetlands? I mean, I'm assuming nature has a certain way of preserving wetlands through the flow of water. And is this environmentally okay? Is it detrimental to wetlands? I just don't know. I'm ignorant about this. Thank you.
I'm not sure if you want to answer that, but that may be a question that comes back to us and to the Conservation Commission and Planning, and thank you for asking it. Do you want to take a stab at that or have it
I can.
answered later?
Right now, the water that's coming into that wetland is actually overflowing the wetland and flooding the neighbors. So there'll still be water. We made sure there was still water going to those areas, enough to feed the wetland. And there's actually a brook coming through. I surveyed that property back in 2003. That wetland wasn't there. It was a change in the system by someone building like a dike going across one of the property lines. So
Just a follow-up question. Are we going to have an outside expert inform us about the wetland issue? I mean,
Yes.
thank you.
And not, let me clarify. Normally, we do counselor questions after this whole presentation, but because some of your specialists said, if you have any questions, and there were a couple, I see another hand up now, Counselor Block. I don't know if it was relating to that or whether it's, because we're not in committee yet. I mean, we are, but we're going to let them finish their presentation and go to the public unless you have a specific question right now.
No, I'll hold my question.
Great. Sorry, I may have confused things by taking a few questions. But go ahead, Mr. Lee.
Okay, so we'll resume and we're going to pivot a little bit in terms of the affordable housing. So just prior to our coming before you tonight, we appeared before the Newton Housing Partnership. And what we've done is originally we've asked for a payment in lieu. And just a very quick recap of the ordinance. By default, we are required to provide 12.425 units based on 17.5% of 71 units. And in the ordinance, there's a table that says that there are tier 1, tier 2 units that we're supposed to provide. Alternatively, we have an option to make a cash payment in lieu based on this mathematical formula you see on the screen, amounts to just slightly over $8 million. If the payment were to be made, half and half will be split. So the Newton Newton Affordable Housing Trust will get 50% and Newton Housing Authority will get 50%. That's an alternative. Another option was to build affordable units off-site. The default position is to build the units on the property itself. So based on the request that we have made initially and having a number of conversations with folks in the affordable housing world, and we have received feedback based off the payment in lieu request is a little bit unusual. We understand that. However, the feedback we received was indicating that the $8 million may not have been enough. but that is what is required in the ordinance. And we don't know what that larger number is. We've heard larger numbers from various folks without any basis. Large, and you heard one of the members of the public state that in the very first meeting. So in light of that, we decided to put the units and build the units in the project without asking for an IZ payment in lieu. We think that the standard default position of that hopefully ends any of the debate. We are really hoping to move this project forward, and that allows my clients to move forward with a definitive answer and a plan. Otherwise, we were really unable to make any plans based of conversations we've had on this particular topic.
So that is an update.
Yes, that is an update.
And I think that will probably come as a big relief to many people. Councilor Laredo, do you want to ask a question right now?
I do. I just want some clarity. So to be clear, you are not looking anymore for the payment in lieu. You are going to include the affordable units within the project?
Correct.
Okay. And are you going to then sell those units?
That's right. So there'll be a mixed income development effectively. So there will be market rate units and affordable rate units in the project.
And how are you going to include the homeowners assessment within that?
So that very question came up at the partnership meeting just before here. The condo association will have percentage interests spread between the market rate units and the affordable rate units. Based on the statute, it's based on fair value to establish those percentage interests.
So in other words, the essentially condo, what I'll call a condo assessment, will be proportionate to what would be appropriate for an affordable unit and not reflect the actual cost. And will that be in perpetuity?
That is correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you for the update.
Before you move on, can you just let us know how are you going to build the 12.425? What happens to that 0.425s of it? Is that 13 units?
So it's a partial payment, and off the top of my head is I believe it's $240,000.
So you build 12 units and then the point whatever.
A fraction gets made up with cash. Correct. That's the ordinance.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else on this topic, or shall we have him move on and then ask all our questions again at the end? Okay, go ahead, please.
I was asked to also go back to the Newton Partnership November hearing to present additional information. So there may be a little bit more information to come on that topic. So now I'm going to move on to the landscape architect, Mark Zarillo. Just by way of some background, Mark's been around doing this type of work for decades, and he sits on some boards in the local communities, and he'll tell you our planning strategy. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have responded to some of the comments, all the comments that were put before us, but one thing we wanted to do was also give you an impression of the theme of the development and how the development would be planted during the course of the final construction. The landscape design and planting strategy that we outlined the last time we were here looks at replacing the trees by mitigation by replacement. And that roughly puts in 2 times the number of existing trees that are there now. And over the course of 10 to 20 years, the canopy replacement would increase in size by growth, add to the coordination of that. The planting itself, the planting design was a 3-part process. The first was a planted edge along the perimeter of the property. Second would be a tiered planting of the riprap edge that brings you up to the plateau where the development is. And then there's a regular ornamental planting for that development. Did I push that the right way? Oh, okay. So just to look at the hardscape and to understand how the planting would be done, what the theme of the planting would be, how the planting would be coordinated. The idea is that it definitely is an urban area, but the planting would be similar to the estates that are there now. The roadway that you've seen in some of the stark looking engineering plans would basically look very much like this, with a sidewalk, perhaps a planted edge, and a view of the units along that loop road. The idea, the hardscape entry to the townhouses would include planted areas that would inundate, illustrate more of the flowering and textured plants in and around the units. And part of the idea to incorporate low impact design with drainage design with the planting is sort of illustrated in that section across the top. If you take a look at that, we are incorporating some of those elements in terms of bioretention swales, pervious pavings, and bioswales, with the intention that as we develop the hardscape, that we can increase some of the runoff filtration before it actually gets to the detention areas. The idea of the riprap planting was discussed last time we were here. It probably wasn't fully realized because you need really to visualize what it might look like in terms of larger boulders being used, walls along the edge of boulder walls along the edge, and the idea that they would be planting along the these walls, these tiered areas. And here you have an example of 10 different types of plants. You have sedges and sedum, which are typically used in alpine areas and used on green roofs. You have some flowering plants like Forsythia and Cotoneaster that can be used. And essentially, you can basically put together, the idea of a rock garden along the edge of these areas. Not initially, it will need to be established, but ultimately there will be ability to have this type of planting in those areas. One of the things that was asked, and we included it here, was an analysis of the trees themselves, the existing trees on the site. So here's a table that shows the count and the types of trees that that the arborist put together for us. Also, a breakdown of the size of the trees and the types of the trees that were between 6 and 24 inches, and then over 24 inches. And so the total number of trees is about 1,849. And you can also see that there are most of the trees are between 6 and 24 inches in diameter. There's about 1,600 trees like that. The idea of planting and mitigation by replanting, we did speak with Mark Welsh, and we gave him our information, and basically he looked at the plans and concluded that the data was accurate, but it was still very preliminary, and that essentially mathematically it is possible to replace the trees. But of course, we need to do a much more detailed plan, and we need to follow the ideas that are put forth in the zoning bylaw, which means that we need to accommodate deciduous trees and evergreen trees in kind. And these are some examples of the trees that we would be using, and also trees that are there now. But one of the things that we remember is that what we have is a different type of planting there currently. And when we plant these trees, there'll be more of an opportunity for these trees to become what you see here in terms of specimen types. There was a concern about the perimeter planting. What we have and what we see on this diagram is about 440 trees that are existing in the 25-foot buffer around the property. Together with additional tree mitigation of approximately 900 trees, we can use that as a buffer for the planting. And again, we're using pine, spruce, hemlock, maple, oak, etc. These are trees that are existing on site and will be used again. So the landscape, to summarize, the landscape areas are essentially the ornamental plantings that will occur up on the plateau with the units. And the riprap plantings, as we talked about, represented by the purple color up there, would be planted and become a visual amenity for the site. And then there is the drainage basin plantings, which would be essentially perimeter planting around the edges of the drainage basins. They of course will be fenced, but they also will be buffered as well. So that's sort of an update on the planting itself. And this is an illustration of the design of the units and roadway over the top of the existing trees. And you can see what we can save along the edges and what we can replant in the center of the site.
Thanks, Mark. So just quickly wrapping it up, summarizing. So there will be some stormwater improvements that are being made to what is existing there. One of the things I do want to touch upon, maybe a little bit preliminary, but it is part of the memorandum that John Daglian had already issued on the I&I mitigation abatement. So just a quick reminder, we have to pay an I&I infiltration inflow fee, just short of $1.6 million, of which John Daglian recommended about $400,000 of that is going to go to sewer improvements. The remaining 1.2 million can be used towards mitigating factors in the neighborhood. The planning department is charged with making recommendations on how to use it. We, as the petitioner, want to have those funds to benefit the immediate neighborhood. And we've had some preliminary discussions with certain members of the planning department about that. We understand that it is not within our control. However, I think it would be great for the certain portions of that money for Dudley Road traffic calming measures, Hagan and Adeline Road drainage improvement measures, and to Newton South High School improvements. So overall, the project really provides for an additional type of housing to the inventory. This adds to some diversity, particularly contrasting that with the more recent 528 Boylston Street development that approved 184 apartment style units. We think the townhouse typology fits within the neighborhood. As you may remember, the 2022 expression of interest from the city selected a townhome style development, which ranged from 75 to 125 unit density on Dudley Road. And then the trees will be replaced by the tree ordinance. We will follow that, as Mark Zarello indicated. We did meet with Mark Welch. He did issue a memo that's in your packet. He did acknowledge that this is a very preliminary stage to assess exact numbers, exact data. But at this moment, we have provided accurate data. He did agree in terms of the generality of the approach. Later on, with the tree permit, we will flesh out some of those details. Finally, I think the project is good in terms of generating perpetual tax revenue for the city, which will obviously be in perpetuity. So we'll wrap it up for now and finally give you all a chance to talk a little bit more. Thank you.
Thank you. We would now normally go to the public for comments and then come back into the committee. I already have a couple of hands up, so I'm going to ask if I'll put you on the list too, but I'm asking if there are members of the public. Would you like to come up to the microphone and speak, sir? And I see some people online too. So we'll start with you. Just give us your name and address.
Good evening. My name is Michael Latta. I'm the Executive Director of Newton Housing Authority. I live at 65 Lincoln Street in Norwood. Offices here at 82 Lincoln Street in Newton Highlands. I just wanted to only be a minute or two, as I know there are far more discussion points outside of the affordable housing component tonight. The purpose for making a comment tonight as the Director of the Housing Authority is to reiterate our support for our agency's need to redevelop our very aged properties across our entire public housing portfolio. At a time when both state and federal revenue streams are in dire straits, we wanted to talk about the crucial support that inclusionary zoning cash payments in lieu of affordable units when appropriate are to the Housing Authority. As the Dudley Road project development would have led to a multi-million-dollar cash payment for the Housing Trust and Housing Authority. Of course, this decision was of the developer and its owner, but given conversations of late, the NHA did feel inclined to speak about the unusual net benefit of these potential net cash payments. Not all projects are the same, of course, and at times inclusionary zoning units are a great asset to be gained for the city. However, there are times that the value of a large cash payment outweighs the complexity of IZ units that service a higher percent AMI. For instance, the Housing Authority serves the lowest of the low, 30% AMI families, seniors, and individuals with disabilities. This is the extremely low-income population that unfortunately will not benefit from the Dudley project, even with inclusionary units. Large cash payments, however, from the IZ ordinance can refill the coffers of both the Housing Trust and the Housing Authority at a time when the NHA is prepared to seek designer services for a large-scale redevelopment. The purpose of our recent memo to committees was to inform counselors and partnership members about the NHA's previously successful uses of the IZ payments, including pre-development funding for a 9% low-income housing tax credit affordable housing development Nonantum, known as Haywood House. If the community is serious about creating new 100% affordable housing, which I know it is, while preserving and improving existing subsidized housing properties, then it is crucial that we finance these large-scale projects with local IZ cash payments. Our senior properties lack general accessibility. Our family developments have wonderful potential to increase density, and we are only receiving less than 5 cents on the dollar for our capital needs to maintain these properties from the state and federal government. So please know, to end, that NHA is grateful for our close partnership and support from the city. We are thankful for the CDBG funds, the CPA, home, ARPA funding, and other sources from the city to provide safe, decent, and affordable housing to Newton's most vulnerable. However, without IZ cash payments, we will be unable to create the necessary redevelopment projects that will ultimately increase our affordable housing stock while preserving what we already have. Thank you again.
Thank you. I should go to planning. But come up and we'll go to planning after you. I'm sorry, I've gotten out of control. Let us know who you are and what you have to say. And I see hands on Zoom, which I will get to you too, but we do need to hear from planning. Go ahead, sir.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair and committee members. My name is, excuse me, I'm about 10 feet tall. So my name is Dan Goodrich. I'm an attorney at Murphy and King in Boston, Massachusetts, 28 State Street. And I'm here on behalf of several abutters, the Dudley Road 100 Realty Trust, as well as the New Dudley Realty LLC, which is located at 100 Dudley Road and 110 Dudley Road. I was recently retained by the abutters just in the past week or so, and we're in the process of conducting some analysis on the developer's proposal, as well as retaining engineers to conduct additional peer review, specifically regarding specifically regarding the blasting and the traffic analysis. I think based on tonight's hearing and the report, the 1024 public hearing memo that I reviewed beforehand, it doesn't seem like this is going to be set for vote anytime soon, especially not this evening. But I would just ask on behalf of my clients, the trustee, to hold voting on this until some reasonable analysis can be done with additional peer review. Thank you.
Not to worry about that happening tonight for sure. Thanks for introducing yourself on behalf of your clients. I'm sorry, planning. Let's go back to you and hear a planning department report. And if you have anything from the peer reviewers in response.
No worries. Thank you, Madam Chair. So my name's Katie Wewell from Planning. So we have the 85 Dudley Road project to rezone to MR1 and then construct 70 single-family attached dwellings in 26 buildings while keeping the main dwelling. These are just some land use updates since September 9th, the site visit that occurred in September. The planning memo was issued on Friday, October 24th. We received revised plans on October 25th, which would have been the Saturday. We request that the petitioner submit a narrative describing what changes are within those plans, if anything, with this revised submission. So those plans are currently under review by planning, as well as our consultants from BSC, who are also on the call tonight, Dominic Rinaldi, who is handling stormwater and civil engineering, and then Amy Allen, who is covering transportation. You heard from them at the September 9th hearing, so they are just here for questions. We also received a response to counselor comments uploaded yesterday, October 27th. And then lastly, on the planning board recommendation, we anticipate that to take place on the rezoning in November. I just want to give a quick update and sort of overview of the topics that were covered. I'll try to keep it really brief and focus on what remains unanswered. So we heard tonight that the applicant or petitioner is pivoting to provide the units on site. As such, they should withdraw the zoning relief to make that cash payment. Planning will review with housing staff and provide more information at a future hearing. Site design, I think there were a few that were left unanswered, so it's whether the committee would like to pursue those answers from the petitioner, but just to remind everyone, councilors asked how the proposed development fulfills the 5 objectives in the city's expression of interest, whether the project can be modified so that more of the site is undisturbed, can further consideration be given to the existing unique qualities of the site, removal of the center High Point ridge to develop this deep detention pond will need maintenance over time, and fencing and railing all around the top. And then they did respond to the path question. Open space, landscaping, and tree preservation. I think we've covered that a bit. I just wanted to make the point that to the extent that any information was provided to Mark Welsh that has not been provided to the Land Use Committee or planning for that matter, the petitioner should upload those subsequent materials provided to Mark Welsh to the special permit application. So planning staff, counselors, consultants can also review that information. Construction impacts, there are questions about location and duration of blasting, duration of construction, and where will those construction vehicles park. Some of these may have been answered tonight, but this was just based on the responses we received yesterday. And then the point of the regrading. So these were also raised in the planning memos, the lack of runoff collection or infiltration for the driveways. That was pointed out in the Associate City Engineers memo. They also recommended the asphalt berm be replaced with granite curbing. And then there was a response as to whether this meets the stormwater ordinance that will require further review. It seems like they are requesting waivers from certain sections of the stormwater ordinance. So staff will also review that with the Associate City Engineer and BSC. Transportation, there was some questions about guest parking, number of overall parking stalls, unbundling. whether permeable surfaces would be used for driveways and parking areas. And mitigation. So city staff are currently reviewing possible mitigation measures for this project. However, as noted in the planning memo, speed humps have been discussed quite a bit, but I just wanted to reiterate that they're typically not acceptable to the Newton Fire Department. Also, speed feedback signs have also been mentioned, and those are already included as part of mitigation with a different project, and they are designated for Dudley Road as well. The next steps, the information requested and updated information should be uploaded to the application record. BSC and will review the revised materials and issue updated responses indicating whether these topics are resolved at this point, and we'll also take any counselor comments and considerations to follow up on as well. So that concludes the planning presentation. We're here for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Weevil. So there are no peer review comments tonight because materials were not received in time for them to do that. Is that correct?
That's correct, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you very much. Now I'm going to go back to the public hearing part. Anyone else here in the chamber wanting to speak to this? I'm going to go to some people on Zoom. The first hand I saw was Janine Stewart.
Good evening. I just want to say I'm impressed with this development. The developer is not just developing this project, they are making commitments to the neighborhood. They're committed to funding the speed humps, which are much needed along Dudley Road. It's a hazardous road for anyone walking and will help to slow down traffic and alleviate pedestrian accidents. I understand that they're committed to the path from Dudley Estate for students to walk safely to the high school to Route 9. And the fact that the developer is looking to provide safety measures to the neighboring area is commendable. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Stewart. Julie Winsett. There
Can
you
you
go.
hear me? Oh,
Yes.
oh, sorry. You can hear me now. Okay. Hi, I'm Julie Winsett at 33 Alexander Road in Newton Highlands. I'm a neighbor and have young kids in the area, and so I appreciate the opportunity to speak, and also as a physician will speak to some health concerns, although mostly tonight I'm speaking for my children. I'm absolutely devastated to hear the plans to destroy 1,849 trees, not 100, not 1,000, but 1,800. That is an entire large forest. Newton has already lost so much green space, and this property is particularly unique. I don't know if any of you have been there, but it has so many very old and very big trees, mostly native species, beautiful ledge, and so much wildlife. It's absolutely gorgeous. In addition to the loss of the trees and wildlife, there's also considerable negative impact on the surrounding environment. I'm worried about runoff and flooding for the high school and surrounding neighbors, and also pollution of adjacent wetlands. I'm also worried about the air quality and the creation of a heat island. The tree canopy cools the air not just directly under it, but around it as well, and can impact multiple degrees of temperature. And we're talking about an entire forest. The surrounding area is used a lot by our children. The high school kids are in school there. They spend a good amount of their day outside. There's surrounding tennis courts and sports fields that are used by kids of all ages, even going down to kindergarten and elementary school. And the heat island effect is really important for them because they're going to be outside playing in the heat. And I'm also very worried about the air quality because of all the outdoor time our kids spend in this area. There will also be considerable traffic in an area that's already congested, and with the increased pollution from the cars, that will also negatively impact the air quality. As a physician, I can speak to the importance of air quality and green space on human health. There's considerable data showing that access to high-quality green space reduces morbidity and mortality from cardiovascular and pulmonary disease, as well as reducing stress, lowering blood pressure and cholesterol, which are leading contributors to early death. I'm sure you've recently seen reports about microplastics found throughout the human body, even in our brains. Microplastics are a topic unto ourselves, but briefly, trees and green space mitigate our exposure to microplastics. And finally, green space also reduces stress and boosts mental and social health. These factors are important for neighbors and also for all the children that use this space. And finally, just to finish up, a personal plea. This is an area surrounding a school and public sports fields, and an area where our children are outside a lot. I truly hope the adults can come together on this and try to make this project in a way that will have less of a negative impact on our kids. Our kids deserve this from us. In listening tonight, there was mention of non-native plantings, riprap. One presenter said something about doubling of the tree canopy, but did they really propose 3,600 trees in this area? This seems disingenuous. These trees would take more than our lifetime and more than our children's lifetime to grow. So I hope we can do things to preserve and save the trees that are already there. I hope there are ways we can scale back the project so it has less of a negative impact as I've outlined. Even the Conservation Committee suggested the project would benefit from being scaled back and had major concerns about the damage to surrounding wetlands. If there's anything we can do to scale this back and maintain at least some of the green space and protect some of the original very old and very large trees, that would make this better. I implore you to try to make this proposed project more habitable for our children and our neighbors and our health, and to make this better on behalf of our children. 1,800 trees. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Winsett. I forgot to point out to everyone speaking that there is a little timer on the screen you can look at that will help you gauge when your 3 minutes is coming up. Next, Laura Petrillo. You need to unmute.
Thanks.
There you go.
Laura Petrillo. I'm from 119 Oxford Road in Newton. Also a mother, also a physician, and co-founder of Protect Newton Trees and a member of Mothers Out Front Newton. We have been paying a lot of attention to trees and tree loss in the city that has happened in concert with development. This project is devastating. I share the prior commenters' just absolute devastation about the amount of tree loss that's being proposed. The pictures of this property, the tree canopy is so incredibly dense. And I just want to echo single thing she said about health effects, about cooling the air, about cleaning the air, about stormwater, which is incredibly important, and the impact that would have on the surrounding areas and on the schools. But I also want to highlight how inconsistent the plans that were presented to you are with the actual tree ordinance. There was a lot of mention of the mitigation, mitigation by planting and with a 2-to-1 canopy. If you actually pull up the chart and look at the number of inches that are needed to replace the inches that are being proposed to be cut down. And my eye just zoomed right in on the oaks, which are a hugely important native species that support a lot of biodiversity in our area. This is an area rich with mature trees. Much was made of how little the trees were, but there were many trees over 25 inches into the 38-inch range. And when you actually look at the number of trees that are required, if you're going to replace with a 4-inch tree, it would take 6 4-inch trees to replace one 25-inch tree. So you need to, that math of 2-to-1, so the planting just simply doesn't add up, even taking the smallest trees, the very smallest trees in that, and then multiplying them by the inches on the chart. So please examine closely what's been presented to you, because I think it's incorrect. And it's also really hard to imagine when there's a dense canopy on that picture of the current property, and then the picture of the drawing, that there is just a complete fallacy that there's any ability to replace that canopy that is mature, that has grown, that has an ecosystem, that has a whole just it's a forest with so the disruption cannot be replaced. It can't, the mature trees and everything, all the benefits they provide cannot be replaced by landscaping planting that was presented in the drawings that you saw. So I really encourage closer look. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Petrillo. Mary Ann.
Hi, my name's Mary Ann Payne, and I live in Oak Hill Park. And I would just like to agree with the previous two speakers. I think that it is, and I would like to speak for Newton South. I have a question, and one of my questions is Newton South going to be included in the pre-damage survey? Is because they have reduced the runoff to the abutters, has it all filtered over to Newton South? Because Newton South, as I know, if you went there, as I'm sure you all have, Newton South sits below the street for half of the school. So I would really like to encourage the council to not create an almost certain disaster with Newton South due to this development, which in my opinion, Newton is trying to increase diversity or in trying to increase density. This does not do either one. And it's nice they have a few semi-affordable units, but if this were if the place has to be developed, if it could be developed as a regular building, just a building, and leave as much of that woodland in situ, that would be so much better for the environment. And I really hope that the council doesn't approve another big fancy spread out neighborhood that we don't need, because Newton needs something different. We need to look forward. We need to increase density, increase economic opportunity, cling to any environmentally beneficial place that we have, and we have so few. Newton lacks land. We need to preserve what we have and do the very best with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Payne. David Buzari.
Hello, everyone. I'm Naveed Buzari. I live at 130 Dudley Road. I would also like to echo what the three previous speakers mentioned about the concern about the environment. Unfortunately, those trees that are going to get killed don't have any representative here. So hopefully somebody will speak for them. I also couldn't understand the connection between those with speed bumps and the project on Dudley Road. So I don't know why those with speed bumps are in this project and how these two are related. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Buzari. Leila or Leila Jalinas? Sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. Please correct me if you're still there and if you're on mute. Are you there? I'm going to move on. I'll come back to you if you're still here. If your hand is still raised, we'll try you again. Next up, Terry Sorrow.
Hi, thank you. Terry Sarah from 44 Cook Street and also from the Northampton Neighborhood Association. I'm just a little surprised at some of the comments from the speakers that have previously spoken. Actually, I've sat in on a lot of these meetings with the developer in the neighborhood, and I'm just kind of surprised at the statements that some of them are being made, that it wasn't brought out at these meetings with the neighbors and the developer. I applaud this developer. I really support this development. She works with the neighborhoods, the concerns. It seems like she addressed the safety issue, especially the pathway to Dudley Estate for the students, the safety of the transportation, the speed bumps, the trees. I understand are now, quite concerning, but I understand they're replacing the trees with other trees that will, maybe not be as large or whatever, but they are going to be replaced. And do we want safety as far as trees and then replacement of trees? As far as, like I said, I sat in 4 or 5 of these meetings with the developer in the neighborhood, and the nice interaction, we can do this, we can do that, we can fix that, we can solve that. So I really support this development. It's on 14 acres and there's like 76 units. It's spread out. It's lovely. Northampton here has 300 units on 13,000 square feet. But I'm not going to compare. But I do support this development, and I hope that the council will ask the necessary questions that need. But this developer is more than willing to meet the concerns of the neighborhood and put this project forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Searle. Let me go back to Leela or Leila Jalinas. I see you now. We can't hear you, though. Is the speaker on your end turned on, your microphone? You are unmuted on our end. Okay, I'm going to move on. I'm going to come back to you again. Thank you. Next, Sylvia Testa.
Not Sylvia, I'm using my wife's computer.
We can see you, so you're not Sylvia.
So,
What's your name, sir?
Enrique Testa, 84 Adeline Road. I'm a direct abuter. Exactly the point where DP3 is going to be located. That was my house. And my question is, are those just DPs that they wrote in the project actual catch basins that are going to be right there next to the house, right next to the edge, or are those just symbols that they're using in the planning? That's the one question I have. Second, the engineer was very happy because all this water is going to be infiltrated in that 62% that the 42% that is not catched by the 62% reduction. The water table in this area is extremely high, so I'm not sure what that water is going to be doing to the whole neighborhood. That's a constant concern of all of us who live along Adeline Road. Thirdly, I totally agree with what Dr. Winsett and Petrillo said. I'm concerned about and nobody say anything about what measures to protect the neighbors, not with the water or the siltage, as they mention it, but about all the dust, a piece of plastic, styrofoam from the construction, that little particles that go up flying everywhere. Many builders use blowers to clean their sawdust, and that blows into the air and gets everywhere. And I'm not sure what measures, if any, has anybody planned for this large construction. And the last comment is in the presentations, they have these beautiful pictures or renderings of how the neighborhood the new construction is going to look with the trees and the landscaping, except that all those trees are much larger than what they're going to plant when they build it. So I'm pretty sure that those trees are 10 inches or more that in their renderings. So will be, just to be truth to the facts, they should make the renderings with the actual size of the trees they're going to be planting. And people will get a better idea as to what the reality is going to be. As someone said, those trees are not going to get to 10 to 20 inches in a couple of years. It will take much longer. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Testa. Unfortunately, I see Ms. Jalinas put her hand down. If you're still listening and if you can't be heard, please do send us an email so we can hear your thoughts. Next, I see the hand of Lucy Chansky.
Lucy Chansky, 259 Jackson Street in Newton Center. I totally agree with what Dr. Winsett said. I think losing the trees is very detrimental to the whole city, but certainly the surrounding neighborhood. And it's just ongoing and ongoing. We're losing too many trees. So I would hope that there is a way to replace the trees, make the project less dense. I've asked many times and I still don't have an answer. What percentage of the land will be open space? And I have not heard anyone answer that yet, and I would love to know that answer. And then I have one other issue about accessibility. I heard that each building will have elevators, so there'll be access to the different floors. but I'm wondering about the outside of the building. I thought when I had seen drawings, there were stairs leading to some of the buildings. So I'm wondering if there's a percentage of the property that would be accessible to people with disabilities from the outside, and then within the condominiums themselves, will there be accessibility for some of the people? And in my mind, the purpose of the set aside for inclusionary housing should provide housing, not repairing existing housing. It should increase the amount of housing that is subsidized for people with lower incomes, not repair what we have. What we have certainly should be repaired, but I think they need to look for other funds. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Chansky. Barbara,
Hello, can you hear me?
we can.
Fantastic. My name is Barbara Surd. I live at 125 Pondbrook Road. I appreciate your time. I'm going to make this as quick as possible. I agree with a lot of previous speakers regarding their concern about this project. So I'm not going to beat a dead horse, but what I do want to mention is that two things. This project will be taking place in conjunction, maybe simultaneously, with 528 Boylston. So there will be significant blasting on both sites. And as someone who lives on Pondbrook Road, I experienced firsthand what blasting feels like when Hancock Estates was being built, which is located on LaGrange Street, which is about half a mile as the crow flies. So I just want everyone to be aware that blasting, especially with all the ledge in this area, travels a lot farther than you would think, number one. And number two, the traffic studies, I believe, I came onto this call a little bit late and I apologize, take into account data from maybe 2024. So they're not taking into consideration the additional traffic from 528 Boylston Street, because as we know, there is no egress from 528 onto Route 9 westbound. So those are two considerations. And I believe that the parcels are appropriate zoned S1 and S2. Currently, this is a relatively quiet neighborhood of single family homes, and this area is not designed for this type of housing with this scale of a project. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Surd. I don't see any more hands up from the public right now. Before we take this into the committee and the council, I wonder if Mr. Lee, do you want to address any of those questions quickly so people can get kind of an immediate response rather than having to wait till our next meeting to hear answers? If there are just a few of those things quickly you would like to handle? For instance, maybe just the percentage open space and the accessibility of the units, for instance?
So I can address whatever I can remember here. So Mr. Testa had raised the question about the design points. He is a neighbor at Adeline Road. That design point is a symbol. It is not where the water is going to go. Actually, the flow of water will be reduced to his house as shown on that sub-catchment plan. I'm trying to find the open space number.
I saw that it was calculated at 60% because one of my questions to you was, it says 60%, but it doesn't appear that way. But Mr. Porter gave us the explanation. So is that an accurate figure?
I believe it's about 66%, but as Vern Porter had clarified what is included in that open space calculation.
In regards to the accessibility, at least 20 of the units will be accessible, fully accessible at the door, not every unit, 20 units.
Thank you. Ms. Chansky, I hope you heard that answer. Okay, if you took notes of any other quick things, I know sometimes it's just nice to be able to quickly answer people rather than having asked a question and not getting a reply. If not, we'll hear back next time from.
Absolutely.
Okay, Thanks.
I
Boy, it's-
can quickly just jump in. The 528 Boylston is included in our traffic study and accounted for.
okay, thanks for that too. I think we will take this now into the committee and into the city council. I already had a couple of hands up and I suspect there will be many more. Councillor Block, you were my first hand.
Thank you, Chair. Just a comment for VHB. You mentioned the Dudley Road queuing. It would be helpful if you would prepare a queuing map that shows us the current queue at peak times on Dudley Road, morning, evening, weekend peak times, and what the projected numbers are after this development and any other developments that are being planned and any other generalized rate of increase of traffic. Thank you. Look forward to that. Oh boy, what a proposal. I guess I'm wondering if the petitioner at a future meeting would tell us what other site designs they considered, because so many of the comments have to do with retaining the trees, the forestry, and the habitats that are so unique to this area. I do have a specific question about that, which I'll get to in a minute. But one thought that I had walking this property was to leave the access to Dudley and most of the area around the ledge so that wouldn't have to be blasted, and restrict the development down by Brandeis Road and use Brandeis as the address, as the primary access to this. I'm just wondering whether you'd considered a plan like that. How many units would that be? And what your thoughts are regarding retaining as much of the forestry area as possible. And in that regard, one of my questions that I haven't seen an answer to, which I submitted when the chair asked for them, whatever date that was, I asked about the identification of any endangered species, flora or fauna that inhabit the land being proposed for development, and especially describe the ledge habitat and what species would lose their habitat if the proposed plan is built. I'd address that to the planning department. I include the developer. If the developer has information about that, I'd be very interested. I think there'll be lots of questions about this. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Councillor Block, I think I saw on the replies that the developer submitted a reply to some of that plant identification. And I think their answer, which came from the Conservation Commission, I believe Jennifer Steele said, we have not inventoried, wildlife or fauna in this area. So I'm not sure that that exists.
Well, I appreciate your pointing that out. As someone who has to make some determinations here, along with everybody else, that's very important information for me to know, and somebody might have to do some inventory.
So the question still stands. I'm just saying you did ask the question and they replied that they didn't have that yet. So
Thank you.
Anything else from you right now?
Not right now, thank you.
Okay. Next, President Laredo.
So, Madam Chair, let me just start off with a process question. Do you envision us taking a vote on this term?
Personally, I do not.
I mean,
We haven't had a full
we're
conversation
spending,
in the council.
I mean, it's the 28th, of October. Our last meeting is December 15th. There's clearly a lot that has to be provided to the planning department, and the planning department has to do its analyses. We don't have to answer that question now, and I've certainly seen projects where we take them up in one term, they don't go through, and then the new council at least starts off with a fair amount of the work done. But I think it would be helpful before our next meeting if we had a sense of that and where this was going. I do have some other questions, however. Number
Can I
one.
just address that process one while we're on it before you ask your other question?
Of course.
No, I don't think we're going to solve this term, but I think it's really important. And I wanted to wait till the end of tonight so we could hear more of the comments, because we need to give the petitioner feedback on how they can adapt and what they're going to present for the planning department and the peer consultants to review. And I think there's a very good chance that this is going to roll over into the next term, but I am just speaking from my experience, not the entire group yet, but I'm happy to hear the rest of your questions and comments.
So I'll just address, I think, three other questions. One, the pathway for students to go to and from Newton South High School, is there going to be a permanent easement that allows for that, or is that just going to be something that's there? Mr. Lee, Attorney Lee, are you going to grant the city an easement?
So the pathway is going to be it's not a dedicated pathway. The pathway effectively is a combination of sidewalk, crosswalks, and then leading to a shared way to the one of the detention basins towards Newton South Side. At the moment, we have not considered granting a permanent easement.
I would urge us to make sure that in fact, if this is going to be used as a pathway, that's a representation. The city, in order to protect its interests, needs an easement here. Otherwise, it will be, nothing will prevent the developer or the homeowners association for 2, 3, 4 years from now trying to shut off access. And now there's a question of whether there's some kind of easement by law. I don't want to get into the real estate aspects of it, but I would ask our law department and our planning department to work on that very carefully. Number two, the stormwater retention area, I think I heard the planning department say it needed some kind of fencing around it in order to be safe. Am I correct about that, Ms. Wewell?
Yeah, I believe that was a comment from one of the counselors. So I would defer to the development team as to what the design is for that. And I can certainly follow up with the appropriate staff on the city side in ISD or engineering.
So from what I understand with this stormwater management plan, it's going to require, it's a fairly complex plan, and it's going to require ongoing maintenance. And we just heard in connection with another project, I think it was the permeable surfaces issue, we heard from Mr. Dagley and colleagues that there's no enforcement process in place right now. None. And it's just, kind of dependent on the homeowner or the developer following the rules. That's not acceptable to me. And I don't see how we approve a large stormwater mitigation process without ensuring that there's annual compliance and it's enforced. If all we do is put it in a council order and no one's enforcing it, it's meaningless. And I would urge us to think that through, or if it's next term, think through very carefully about how we ensure that that's enforced. That may be an administrative function as much as a council order function, but we darn well better address that. The third observation I have is that there was a representation that the tree canopy in 20 or 30 years would be actually more than the existing tree canopy. But that's not the accurate measure. The measure is, what would the tree canopy be in 30 years if we left it as is versus what is the tree canopy going to be in 30 years under your proposed plan? Those are the apples to apples measures, and I'd want to understand exactly what that is. Okay, I'm all set for the moment. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, President Laredo. Counselor Lobovitz.
So I have a couple of questions about what we can consider and what we can't. One is the inclusionary zoning payment in lieu of. Is that now we know that the developer would like not to pay the payment in lieu of and have the inclusionary zoning units. Is that something the council can decide? What is can we provide guidance on that? Do we want to get an answer to that first, or should I continue?
Why don't you ask all your questions?
The second thing is the whole issue of the trees, and whether we can consider any questions about the trees as long as the developer complies with the ordinance. Can we make that a condition or insist on more of the natural tree environment when the developer is complying with the tree ordinance?
Are you asking if we can ask for more than compliance with the recent updated tree ordinance?
Yes, a change in the plan because we're concerned about the plan for the trees that have been raised. Is that a legitimate consideration for this committee and the council? Or again, if they're compliant with the tree ordinance, can we go beyond that? I guess, what are the parameters for us, guidance for us in terms of consideration of the trees?
I wonder if Mr. Temple is the best person to answer that question. Or perhaps planning. It's my understanding that compliance with the tree ordinance is what we ask and what we expect. I haven't thought about, I don't know about if we can ask for something more than that.
Yeah, Chair, I can speak to that briefly. So
Thank you.
that's correct. The general rule of thumb when it comes to other general ordinances that govern a project is the petitioner has to comply with that ordinance. There's no need for us to condition compliance. It is something that will have to be done regardless. And it's really not appropriate to ask for or require anything above and beyond what that ordinance requires. And then also going back to the inclusionary zoning question, Counselor, the way I understood that was, it sounds like you're looking for some guidance as to whether or not you can still keep the option of making them do the payment in lieu on the table versus providing the units. But they appear to be withdrawing the request for a special permit for the payment in lieu. So that is no longer going to be a consideration for this council.
So again, on the tree issue, in terms of our decision about whether to approve or not, although we may be, just to clarify that, we may be very concerned about the natural tree environment, but can we use that as a rationale to deny the application, for instance?
I would not recommend that if they are complying with our tree ordinance.
Thank you. I just have a couple of other questions. The humps, the road humps, is it my understanding that the fire department did not want those on Dudley Road? Is that correct? Okay, got an answer. Thank you.
DPW is not fond of them either in terms of plowing, but those are things that we would ask them. to weigh in on. But that's the general understanding that we have so far.
Okay, and my last point is the question of the wetlands, and I'd like more detail about the effect of this plan on the wetlands. And I didn't see that anywhere as a question or, you know.
That would also be a great question for the Conservation Commission for Jennifer Steele to address.
Thank you.
Set up? Okay. Counselor Leary.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a lot of concerns about this project, and I got more concerned from this meeting and the lack of preparation. I would like to have materials, data, and all pertinent information in the Friday packet and in time to allow for responses for planning, engineering, and other pertinent staff. So I was very frustrated with the limited info, the lacking info for this meeting. I actually think this project is an environmental disaster. It's a wholesale destruction of an urban forest. And in this day and age, 2025, we have to think a lot more thoughtfully about where we're going to put housing. I agree with quite a few of the members of the public who talked about the issues with the destruction of natural spaces and the impacts on that. And I won't repeat that. But there's also the project on such steep terrain, and I'm very concerned about stormwater impacts, about the sediment, the impacts on neighbors. Don't have confidence in their current storm plan regarding stormwater. It's a very challenging site. There's a reason why it hasn't been developed. I could not even consider voting for this unless it was significantly changed. The comment about the existing trees, that they're going to be 2 times the number of trees. So that's 3,698 trees. Where are you going to put those trees? Where would there be space for them? I think that's doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. There was issues with I haven't seen permeable materials, driveways or walkways. I was reading about the proposed buildings, and many of them don't have a system of collection and runoff or anything like. I mean, basic stuff that we expect. This site is going to have a very negative impact on the neighbors I'm concerned about, the school. Not to mention, well, I already did mention it, the impacts on wildlife, on air quality, on all those things. I just think this is the wrong place for that kind of development, really the wrong place. I support housing, and most people know I'm a strong supporter of housing, but this is not what we want. It will cost the city more than it's worth. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Leary. I probably should have said this a few people ago, but I wanted to remind particularly the committee members to think about the questions and comments you submitted a few weeks ago and be sure that they were answered in the memo we got in by tonight. And if not, let's put them forward again. I know that many of my questions and comments were not addressed. That's why I think that may have happened to some of the rest of you too.
My questions on the stormwater were not addressed at all.
So let's ask them again tonight, whatever we don't think was addressed. And in my case, I submitted a lot, and some of them were comments, and I was told that they didn't feel the need to respond to comments, just questions. I didn't feel that way about it. I thought my comments deserved a reply too. So I want to be sure that all of you have, when you took the time to write those, that they've been addressed. Councilor Lucas, you're next.
Okay, thank you, Chair. I appreciate it. So my first question is for Mr. Temple, and it's a process question. We heard from the petitioner tonight that they are not doing the cash payment. They're going to put the units on site. I think that's the right move. But previously you had stated that the voting threshold was a 2/3 supermajority. Does this change it, the project voting threshold to a simple majority?
It will not. It will remain a 2/3 vote because the project is not located within a half mile of a bus station or other transit location.
Okay, and how does the planning board play into this decision? That was written in your memo, or in the memo, excuse me.
Zone change.
They are making a recommendation on the rezoning.
Okay, okay, thanks. I could have sworn I must have read it wrong then. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I just to follow up on that, they are going to make a recommendation on the rezoning, and they're also going to make a recommendation and a determination on the voting threshold for the rezoning as to whether or not that is a 2/3 or majority. And their determination is whether or not this is an eligible location, which would make the rezoning a majority vote. But no matter what, the special permit will be 2/3.
Okay, that's it. That's what I'm thinking of. I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Temple. Is Mr. Lee still here? I don't see him anywhere.
He's out in the hall. He is.
Oh,
over
okay.
there.
All right. Well, I am disappointed that we didn't get the answers to our questions in writing, so it could have been incorporated into the planning memo and in preparation of this meeting. He can't hear me right now.
He's coming in
Oh.
right now.
Coffee break?
Sorry about that.
So I was just saying, I'm disappointed that we didn't get the answers to our questions in writing before the meeting. That way we could have been, I think members of the committee could have been better prepared for this meeting, because I was going into this meeting, going to re-ask my questions that I had submitted earlier. So just, if there's any questions that you can answer ahead of the next meeting, please put them in writing so planning can incorporate them into their memo.
Will do.
All right, thank you. A question that I'll just go down my list of questions and then you can answer them. Maybe I missed it in the first meeting, but where are the FedEx delivery trucks going to park? Is there room for them? Same thing for Ubers and ride shares and all that stuff. In Mr. Porter's presentation, he wrote in it, and I quote, "control invasive species," end quote. I don't know what that means, but I hope we're not going to plant any invasive species on the site. The Newton Conservation Commission stated that your client will be cutting down 1,800 trees. I understand that the trees will be replaced per the tree ordinance, according to Mr. Temple, what he just stated. But, how many trees are being cut down, the precise number, and how many trees will remain? That would be good to know. I also would like to know how many trees, will there be a cash payment, or will there be a combination of a cash payment in trees? We had a question regarding the open space. You said that it was going to be 66%. But what percentage of the site will remain untouched? Looking at those site plans, a large percentage is going to be housing and driveway, and I presume you're going to cut down trees that are going to abut these homes. But how much of the site will remain untouched? I had a question about the TDM, and I think I already got my answer. What is your client going to do to reduce car trips, if anything? I would like to know. And then my last question that I put in writing after the last meeting was, how does the proposed development fulfill the five objectives, in the city's expression of interest, or EOI? And particularly, there's a couple here that it says development of a cooperative property plan which enables significant open space conservation, tree preservation, and the protection of wildlife habitat. Exploration of development scenarios which employ cluster developments to maintain cohesive, undisturbed areas for conservation and passive recreation purposes and protect environmentally sensitive site features. Consideration of opportunities for affordable housing development beyond the city's required inclusionary zoning compliance. I'm going to skip the fourth one. And then the fifth one was reservation of a to be determined portion of the property for future use for school or recreation facility needs. That has not been addressed. I'm sorry. 4 of these 5 have not been addressed so far. And then the last thing was, and it's going to play off what President Laredo said, we don't have much time left in this term. We have 4 full council meetings scheduled. The last one is on December 15th, which means we need to wrap up before December 15th, presumably on December 9th. I do worry if we're going to get all the information that we need, the committee and planning, they need information. And I don't know if we're going to get there this term, but I just want to make you aware of that again. I know President Laredo had already stated that earlier, and you too, Chair. So those are my comments for the night. I can put these in writing, but that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Lucas.
Excuse me, Chair, can I do a point of information here?
Who is this?
It's Rick Lipoff.
Oh, sorry. I was about to open it up for other councilors.
I understand, but I think it needs to be addressed right on the heels of what Council Lucas just said, and I would look to Mr. Temple to comment on this. I was part of that group that tried to put together a public-private partnership through the mayor's group to find somebody to do a deal here where we could maintain some land. I really believe that most of what Councilor Lucas just said was our attempt to put a deal together with Civico, who we chose through that process. And when that fell apart, the city was no longer involved. And some of those things that Councilor Lucas is talking about, land for the school, that's what our hope was in that process. But when that process ended, the city's involvement was out. I would like Mr. Temple to comment on that, please.
Mr. Temple, I would love for you to do that, but I didn't believe that the 2022 expression of interest, goals and criteria were off the table because that particular proposal didn't go forward. I was under the impression that some of the intentions and goals of that EOI were still things to be considered. Mr. Temple, what do you say?
Yeah, thank you, Councilor Lipoff, for bringing that up. I do not believe those are criteria that should be considered or something you should hold the petitioner to in this project. This is solely a special permit application, and the focus should be on the special permit criteria only.
That's good clarification for us. Planning Department referenced it too. I see your hand up, Councilor Farrell. Okay, I'll go to you and then I see some other hands. And Councilor Lipoff, if you want to speak again, Susan Albright has been waiting very patiently. We're still in committee, but I'm happy to hear from any other councilors. I see Councilor Maliki here. I think Councilor Wright is here, but let's go to Councilor Farrell now.
Thank you, Chair. And just quickly in response to these issues, one of the things that has concerned me about this project is there is no open space that can be used for any sort of play area for not only young people, but adults. And I'm curious about whether there has been a response to the DPW suggestion to have the detention basins as underground cast in situ vaults that would allow that land to be covered over, particularly the one in the center of the project, which might become a place where people could have some entertainment. I think open space for the enjoyment of people rather than just their backyards is important to have in a development of this many housing elements. So whether the original intention might not be included, I think the notion of open space is very definitely something we should be looking at. Thank you, Chair, for allowing me to jump in.
Absolutely. Thank you, Councilor Farrell. And after all, this is your ward. Councilor Laredo again.
So, Attorney Temple, I certainly appreciate and agree with the statement, and I appreciate Councilor Lipoff raising it, that the city's desire for a certain development here, once the city was not able to find a partner, is not something that we could hold a developer to. However, this is a special permit. Our discretion under special permits is rather broad as long as we follow the criteria we're supposed to use for special permits. And unless you disagree with me, Attorney Temple, I'd like to hear this. At least it's appropriate, it seems to me, to inquire or ask the questions about why something wasn't considered, whether it was considered, whether it could be incorporated in the design. I don't view that as inappropriate here unless you tell me explicitly otherwise.
No, I agree with that, President Laredo. I think it's fine to use those criteria kind of as some guidelines or, to help lead your discussion and your review and to take it into consideration. I'm fine with that.
I think what you're cautioning us about, and I would agree, is that we could not say, you did not follow our statement of interest that we issued 5 years ago, therefore we're going to deny the special permit. That would be impermissible, it seems to me. And I think that's the distinction you're trying to draw. Is that right?
Absolutely correct. But to the extent it's still relevant to your review under the special permit criteria, you can look to it.
Appreciate the clarification. Thank you.
It reminds me of why some people on the committee and the city council are looking towards that Conservation Commission report. Of course, we're not held to follow their advice, but we look to them for their expertise and their perspective on things. And we're not held to that, but we listen. That's a group that's been set up to have relevant information to us. And I view that EOI in a similar way. So thank you for asking for that clarification. Okay, now I'm going to go back to other counselors who are not in the committee. Councillor Albright, thank you again for your patience. You're next.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. So my first comment is addressed to the Land Use Committee. So as I consider the Land Use Committee, you are and should be the stewards of our land, not just where things are built, but how do we maintain the environment that we want and need for our city. So I would hope that you consider this project, which has decided to cover, I would say, the whole hill with buildings, as not perhaps the best way to be stewards of the land. And I would like you to take that into account. As someone, Councillor Lipoff just mentioned the issue of the opportunity that the city was given to be the first offerer of a project or the first considerer of a project in this property. I was involved way back then. And I know there were folks who were involved who thought that perhaps denser projects on part of the land and leaving the rest of it as treed and forested was the better way to go. But for some reason, all of those projects were rejected by the city. It's a shame, but that's what happened. But I think the Land Use Committee needs to be clear that part of its role is to be stewards of the land and not let this kind of project proliferate on this property. It was mentioned earlier, someone asked about condo fees. I am understanding that, I just learned this yesterday that at the Zoning and Planning Committee, that one property in the city where the condo fees were raised so that the affordable unit became unaffordable because they could not afford the condo fees, was finally let go by the city. They said, let it go, let it become a market rate project. And the money that went into the project to support the project was paid back to the city. I know that Mr. Lee said earlier that the condo fee would be always affordable, but I would want to be assured, absolutely assured, in documents and in conditions set forth by the Land Use Committee that the condo fees will always be affordable by the if the project is approved and if the affordable units are on site, because condo fees can grow way out of proportion to people's ability to pay them. The next point I wanted to raise was the water. And I don't know if anybody's thought about this, but all of these units, 72 units with front lawns, will be replacing a forested area. How much more water will be used to maintain this green area now than there is at this very moment? That's not an I know it will be paid for by the folks who will live there, but is this the way we want our water to be used? Paying for the front lawns of all of these units? Something to be considered by the Land Use Committee. Finally, I don't think that we have heard, and I think this has been said by some of you, but I want to make sure that it is impressed upon by the developer that we have not heard yet all the responses that we need for the stormwater ordinance and how we will protect our city and our abutters regarding stormwater. So I'm looking forward to more information on stormwater with respect to this project. And I just want to reiterate one more time that the Land Use Committee is also land use stewards. Please take care when you work on this project. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Albright. Councillor Lipoff.
Hi. Okay. We do this with a lot of projects, and it has to be said as we decide on this project. By right, I think you could probably do somewhere around 20 single-family homes. With the size of the lots that would be carved out, they would probably be $6 million homes. And where the city started when this came available was to try to figure out, if the city controls this, what is the best thing that we can do? And we all want more units of any kind. We want affordable. We know we need them. And that's where we started. Just to speak for a minute about what Councilor Laredo said, yes, a lot of those wants and desires still are relevant now. But the one that I was really pointing to was the land for the school or for the city use. That was going to be done with the city kicking in some money and trying to work with the developer to get some acreage down below, maybe for a pool or a skating rink. But that was something we could do with a public-private partnership where we would find money somewhere to get involved. And that's something that is no longer part of, I believe, this special permit right now. That was the one piece. The other things are desires that are very reasonable. But by right, $26 million homes. By 40B, which this can go to, we looked at a bunch of those from the 9 that we were looking at, and they were 150 to 300 units in 5-6 story buildings, which the neighborhood really railed against when we began. So there's been a huge process to try to figure out what works for the neighborhood. And when it comes to trees, we all would love to save a forest, but there's rights, inherent rights in the ownership of real estate. And for us to say, here's a buildable lot, we don't want to take the trees down, we're going to vote against it. I think Councillor Lobovitz brought up a really good point that we have laws here that if the developers, if the petitioners follow, then we have to follow that too. And if they can satisfy the tree ordinance with replacement and it's signed off by Mark Welch, people may not like that, but those are the rules and the guidelines that we set forth. So I know the developer is saying they'll give the units. I agree with the Housing Authority that $8 million would do a lot of good. And by the ordinance, that's what they have to pay. I've gotten a lot of telephone calls from people saying, I agree we should do the money here, but it's not enough. Well, how much is enough? And nobody comes up with a number. And I think that's the frustration that has led the developer here to go back to giving the units, which is, for me, being nowhere near transportation and being the size units where I question whether people living there will be able to afford the electric bill. I would love to see that be a little bit more of a conversation, but it's up to the developer to choose which way they want to go. $8 million would be the biggest payment made. and it could do a lot of good. So I don't have any specific questions, but I just wanted to put some things on the table for people to think about. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lipoff. Are there any other councillors who would like to say something at this point? Anybody on Zoom? Any members of the public that we missed before? Otherwise, we're going to wrap this up. Councillor Lobovitz?
Just hopefully, last point. This issue of the environment, there's been a lot of discussion about the environment and comments like that. And again, related to the preservation of the trees and the canopy and replacement and all that. Is that actually one of the criteria that we can consider in our determination, the effect on the environment? Can somebody clarify that?
Planning?
I would defer to Attorney Temple on that.
Yeah, I don't know, Katie, does it make sense for you to put up the slide with the special permit criteria? Did somebody have that in the presentation?
Sure. I have it from a prior presentation, but I can pull it up if we think that's valuable.
See if environmental concerns are called out as one of the
Just
criteria.
Just a point of information, Madam
Yes.
Chair, as this is being pulled up, the adverse impact on the community determination, it seems to me, would include things
Fit under
like environmental destruction. Yes, that's just a comment.
There's the will not adversely affect the neighbor.
So we have the 4, excuse me, standard special permit criteria here on this slide. So these are the criteria associated with pretty much almost every special permit, whether it's an appropriate location, whether it will adversely affect the neighborhood, serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians, whether access to the site over streets is appropriate for the types and numbers of vehicles involved. And then the next set of criteria are the retaining wall specific criteria. So whether the lot presents challenging topography, which limits the use of the property, such that it could not be improved without the implementation of the walls, whether the retaining walls will not adversely impact adjacent property, neighborhood, or the public, whether the proposed combination of retaining walls is the minimum structure necessary to allow the property to be reasonably utilized. And then if the petitioner were to withdraw their request to do the payment in lieu, this last criteria would go away. So then the committee would really be focused on the 4 sort of general special permit criteria and the retaining wall criteria.
So not environmental benefits specifically, but I think Councillor Block, I interpret it the same way, that this whole will not adversely affect the neighborhood categories, rather broad. And we've certainly heard about environmental factors, plants, wildlife, oxygen, air. So does that answer your question somewhat? Okay, I see that Attorney Lee would like to say something more before I wrap up with some dates for us to consider.
So I just want to address some of the comments about the site plan and how we got here in terms of the impacts in the forest and so forth. Well, I would like to just very quickly, by way of some background, request that if I can, I don't know if I still am logged onto Zoom. Let me see if this will place me back in to share my screen really quickly, which may be helpful. So bear with me for a quick second.
Do you think this will be 1 or 2 minutes?
Yes. So here it's really a side-by-side comparison of our site plan alongside with the 2022 expression of interest. So as you can see, the shape of the development is quite similar. Obviously, at the time of 2022, to our right, that was done without the benefit of any data. So for example, the assessments of the grade, the ledge, drainage, soils, et cetera, et cetera. So this was a concept of townhomes development in which a private road came off of city property, as Councilor Lipoff and had mentioned earlier. It was a joint venture effectively with the city, and they would have had approval to go through city property for access. This probably would have required, if all the drainage systems, et cetera, infrastructure were to be installed and constructed, a great amount of trees and so forth would have been required to be removed to accommodate this. So this is sort of how we got started. It's not where we came out of no basis, to the extent that we got some idea from this is how we drew that site plan to start off with. Another thing that I would like to just see if I can just share to get some feedback is, apologize. Let me just try to stop. Excuse me. Based on my hearing of comments, this is a concept that was considered or is being considered where it looks similar, but the typology of the units remain the same. However, eliminating the quads from the concepts. The idea here is to allow for some flexibility with more duplexes around, thereby increasing the green spaces alongside Dudley Road, especially alongside Adeline and Hagen Road. We have not had the time at the moment to engineer any of this stuff yet, but we want to just get some feedback whether that would even be helpful or not.
Point of order, Madam Chair. I appreciate Attorney Lee's trying to give us some other ideas. We've been at this 2 hours tonight. We have a project before us. I'm all for Attorney Lee exploring it, but the way to do that is to sit down with the planning department, work it through with them, and then come to this committee when it's at least half baked.
I appreciate the background because people did ask what things did you think about? But I think given the hour and that we're not going to be going further tonight.
If I, Chair Kelly, if I may, is it appropriate for Ms. Stumpo to?
What would you like to address? Because I'm about
Address this whole-
to adjourn for the night.
Yeah, I know. I'd like to adjourn to it, right? We got a head kick in here. I get it. The point is, we bought this development, and purchasing this development was to keep Dudley Road a high-end area residential, keep the main house on the road. Could have taken that main house down, added your 5 more units, then come back and taken them away. Here's what we have, guys, and I'm going to be dead honest here, whether we like it or not. C. Stumpo Development is a resi builder. That's what we do, residential. We kept that street line the same. We're trying to bring in those townhouses, or it just goes away and a 40B goes up there. And maybe that's something you guys want to see. The neighbors aren't going to be happy. You're going to take a lot of heat in that ward, but how much do you want us? How much money do you want us to keep spending? How much more time to come in here? And you literally have kicked our heads in the whole time. You have spoken down to my team of guys that have been working in Newton as long as I've been here for 38 years. I grew up on that street. I care about that street. The last thing I want to see was a developer come in and what? Put a 40B there, just like I could have an eighth of a mile, an eighth of an eighth of an eighth of a mile when I had 7 acres and I put 3 single families in there. And that's 10 years ago. And I could have put a 40B in there. That would have made me as a developer a lot more money. So, Sir Laredo, I know you're going to hopefully become our next mayor. Congratulations. I'm asking everybody to open their eyes here that if Stumpo walks away from this, you're not getting resi. You're getting towers. And let's call it the way we see it. Let's have an honest conversation. I don't think anybody in that area wants that, nor do I. I grew up on that street. I have built many, 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 many homes on that street. We need another development like we had the Gables, like we had at Ledgebrook. You wanted affordable, sir? We left the affordable on the table. We've done everything you guys have asked. You want more green? We'll give you more green. The new plan that we drew up today, that we were not going to share, okay, till the next meeting, because it wasn't good enough to share, ma'am. That's the truth.
I'm not questioning.
So
I'm just
by
saying
getting
too,
rid of, hear me out, by getting rid of those triplexes,
I'm actually
we
going to have to cut
literally
you off
gave
rather than
you-
hear you out.
you want to cut me off? You want to do this? Really? Okay.
I'm not sure if you're adding anything.
I don't think I'm taking away, I'm giving you a realistic view of what's coming. So if you're fine with that, then you're fine with that. Then we're all
I
good.
think the committee has been very aware of what the options are and what we have to do. I was asked today to redesign this for you. That is not our job. What our job is to respond to the design and the plan that has come before us. And that's what we finally started to do tonight. And I'm sorry that you think that this committee has talked down to your team in the 2 meetings we've had.
Ask my team. They've taken hits. Go ahead, ask them. And yes, there's 580 trees that are dead in there, okay, that have to be taken away. But unfortunately, my architect, he got a little nervous up here for some reason. I don't understand. He sits on a board in Brookline, but he got a little nervous. We just want to get to a result here. And we've came to the last meeting, we've come to this meeting, and we're still walking away with no guidance here. Second meeting, no guidance. And that's not fair either. We thought we'd gonna walk away with some guidance here.
That was our intention too, was to give you feedback in order
We didn't
to have-
get that, ma'am. We didn't get that. We didn't. So we're kind of swimming out here and it is, sir, we try to keep you happy with the affordable and then we pissed off other people. It's just, we do one thing for one person and we piss off 3 more people. Come on, you gotta stand in our shoes a little bit every once in a while too. You know, but it is what it is. I gave my best foot forward as a 38-year developer in the city of Newton on Resi, and that would be called residential. And I think I've done a great job in 38 years in Newton.
Ms. Stumpo, we don't
done.
think that we're,
Good.
thank you. We don't think that we're done. We thought after the first meeting that we were just starting. So I'm taking what you're saying as kind of an ultimatum, as if.
No ultimatum,
Process.
no ultimatum. We're just getting burnt out and tired, right? We've been doing this for a long time. We have been working with affordable money, 8 million, 15 million, 14 million. No one can even tell us a number that they want. We're just having conversations that keep going round and round and round. $8 million, no, we want 14 million. Then somebody wants 13, then they want 15 million. How do you work this way? This is no way to work.
Well, we do this often here, and I know that this is not the level of development that you're used to, but having
Oh, I am.
I'm going to finish.
Go ahead.
We do this a lot here. We look at projects that are much larger than this, and they take more than 2 meetings.
I agree.
And we're going to move forward with it. But thank you. And I understand it's hard, and I understand you're frustrated, and I'm sorry your team feels
Well, just so you
talked down
do
to.
know.
But
Go ahead,
let's,
go ahead.
I'm going to close out with
Go ahead, close
what's
it.
ahead of us.
Madam Chair, may I just raise one thing, ask Ms. Wewell to put on her agenda, one question before you close it out?
Yes, go ahead, Councillor Albright.
Thank you. So I was remembering back in the days when I was on the committee that there was a discussion about the concepts of public welfare and public good. And those things didn't come up when you mentioned your specific criteria. So I would like to know for a future meeting, what happened to the idea that the project should be without substantial detriment to the public good? And what happened to the idea that the project would be of public convenience and welfare? I believe those things are still intrinsic to the special permit process, but they did not get mentioned tonight. And could you please address that in the next meeting? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Albright. I see that you're standing there, and I know that we all start to, I don't like to cut off at a certain time if we need to do something substantive. We often like to be done by 10,
No more statements.
but what would you,
No more statements.
okay. Question, anything?
Nothing.
All right. I think we're done for the night. I think you've all taken notes. I'm sorry if that all feels like being beaten up. Here are the dates we have left. As has been mentioned, we have to have this done before December 15th, which is the final city council meeting that will approve things. If it's not done by then, it will need to be withdrawn. It can be started over. It can be carried forward. We have meetings scheduled now for November 18th, which is the next Land Use Committee meeting. Correct me if I'm wrong, clerk or planning. We do have or can have meetings on December 2nd and 9th. So we can have 3 more Land Use Committee meetings. We've got a lot of other work besides this project. We have lots of little projects before us, and we have Riverside before us, all to get done in the next 3 meetings, November 18th, December 2nd, and December 9th. 1 or 2 of those meetings, we're going to be starting earlier because we have to in order to get this done. There's one already on the books for 6:30. Clerk will be in touch with you all. I think you probably all are aware of it already. Just trying to get our work done this term. Sorry to the Stumpo team that you're all feeling this way. I don't think that's ever the intention of the Land Use Committee or the City Council. We believe that special permits help make projects better, and that's the point of talking it over and giving input. I can see by your faces that that's not how it's been taken, and I'm sorry for that. Unless there's any more comment, we're going to be adjourned for the night.
Do we need a motion?
We need a motion to hold.
Like I make a motion to keep the public hearing open and to hold.
Thank you. All in favor of keeping the public hearing open on these, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Hold. Open. Thank you. We're set and we're adjourned.